Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Bayview homered last night, the 0-1. Swain, a line drive, dead center field. On the run is Robert. Back to the warning track, back to the wall. He leaps at the wall. It's gone. Brett Beatty goes to dead center field for the second straight night. And the Mets take a 1-0 lead.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Duvall shaded toward right center. Peterson leads. The pitch to Cody Thomas. Runner goes. It's swung on a fly ball to right. Verdugo going back. He's at the track. He'll turn. It's up on the ledge. And a home run to right field for Cody Thomas. And the Athletics jump in front. It's 4-2 A's.
Tall left-handed hitter, stays fairly away from the plate. Swung on by Benson, hit well. Left center field. That ball is going out of here. Will Benson with an opposite field home run, a 3-run homer, and just like that, the Reds have taken the lead 3-0.
Sent by Kelly and pitch. And that ball was driven deep to right field. Home run, Jonah Heim. A line drive blast that sails over Margot and goes at least a half dozen rows up into the seats. 14th home run of the year for Jonah. And we've got some separation now. It's 5-0 Texas.
Well, it wasn't like 2 nights ago where nearly every Major League Baseball team was scoring 10-plus runs. Yesterday, we saw no Major League Baseball team score 10-plus runs. But it was a baseball night indeed, and we like to welcome you to Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Ravi Lulla in for Damon Benning this week. I'm Andrew Rogers. We're live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. The phone number, 888-638-4876, if you'd like to get involved. The chat room, the studio chat room on YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio and Hurrdat Sports YouTube pages. We're live on Twitter as well. We appreciate all of you joining us on Thursday. And Ravi, my night last night took a turn for the worst.
Oh, no. What happened?
So I'm playing video games, you know. I'm shooting down 13-year-olds on Fortnite.
Sure, as one does.
Was grabbing a ton of second place finishes. Couldn't close.
Ooh,
it was brutal.
That's tough.
Had 2 or 3 in a row of second place. Not a great night there. But you know, I turned off the console at 6. Ashley returns home.
Okay.
And she goes, "Were you messing with the garage door?" And I said, I take off my headset and I said, "What?" She's like, "The garage door." Like it was going down and then up and then down. And I'm like, "I can't hear you. I'm mid-game right now." So I go upstairs after the game concludes, go outside, and come to find out, a bracket on my garage door just snapped off.
Not great.
No.
Not ideal.
So now there's a huge slit in the middle of the door.
That's not what you want.
On the left side, though, but it's the middle of the garage door.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it. I don't know the first thing about this.
No.
Not that I can't learn it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know anything.
Yeah.
I'm not a handy person. I'll admit that. My brother, however, is.
Okay.
So he's always my first call with everything.
Sure.
I'm like, "You're not going to believe what happened." So I show him, and he's like, "Yeah, you know, your bracket's busted. Let me look up and see how much like replacement pieces cost." So we do that. Only costs about $5.
Okay, that's not bad,
right?
No.
Now it really is just about like, you know,
the know-how
the
of fixing
install,
it, yeah.
right, and things like that. Well, I'm looking at the piece, and it's jamming into my garage door. Like it's making a huge dent.
Ooh.
So I have to get my car out of the garage.
Yeah.
So I manually bring up the garage door slowly, trying not to damage it anymore.
Sure.
Leave it up, and I'm on the hunt for this piece. Now, we saw it was at Lowe's.
Okay.
But Home Depot's closer.
Sure.
So I'm like, "Hey, let me just go there first, and then I can go over to Lowe's if they don't have it." Well, online it says they have like 17.
Okay.
I'm like, "Great." Drive to Home Depot. Yeah, they don't have any in store. This is, mind you, like 6:30 at night. Like we had sandwiches at the house, like ready to go. And so I had to put my dinner in the fridge so I could go replace this. Just had to get done. And I had to make sure I got to places before things closed. And I wanted to watch The Last Dance, which I had to postpone, not knowing that this was going to come up. Mm-hmm. Go to Home Depot. Then it's right next to Walmart. So I'm like, I'll just walk into Walmart too, because since I'm here.
Yeah.
They don't have it either. So now I've wasted like 30 minutes. And I'm like, I should have just went to Lowe's in the first place. We saw that they had them at Lowe's.
Yeah.
Should have just went there. So I'm driving over to Lowe's. Well, then Menards is close. So I go, let's just stop into Menards. Shane, you like Menards?
Damn straight.
They have everything.
They have
except
everything.
for garage door replacement hinges. Don't have those in store. So then I go to Lowe's. Guess who had them?
Lowe's.
Could have just started there.
So what I heard here is that
the lesson learned.
You make bad decisions.
The lesson learned is when you know a place has something, don't try to gamble on another place.
No, just go to the place.
Just go to the place.
Just go to the place that has it.
Even if it's only 5 more minutes of the initial drive.
Yeah, you probably would have saved yourself about 40 minutes of ding-donging around. Yeah.
Easily. Because I don't know the first thing about
5 years ago, you could have gotten away with that.
I don't know the first thing about navigating through a hardware store either.
No.
And nobody makes it easy. Like I asked a couple of Home Depot employees if they had it, and the one dude sits there and he's looking on his phone. And I'm like, if you have to look, then I don't feel bad.
Yeah, it's like
I don't know where this is
could have just done that on my phone.
Right. So he's scrolling through.
Because I've seen them do that before. They're literally just on the website. They're not even it's not even a
He
special
employee
website.
No, it's not like, hey, it's down aisle 17.
Yeah, it's not like an internal inventory system. It is just on the website. They're like, it says we're in A14. Give that a try. Thanks, bud.
Like, great. But let me tell you, this guy moved at a snail's pace. So I'm standing here and I feel awkward because I kind of just want to walk away.
Yeah.
But I'm invested at this point.
Yeah, you can't.
So I didn't want to be rude. Anyway, I found the clamp. I go back home. It was very easy to fix.
That's good.
Very easy. Once I watched a YouTube video.
Sure.
It was very easy. And the garage door looks okay. But as we both just found out, I wasted 2 hours.
Yeah.
Through this process.
Not super fun.
Now it's 8:30. And now I'm starting to watch The Last Dance and do my notes.
Yeah.
So not the best night initially, but it turned out okay. I found out too they have this really cool piece. It's called like the Gator something. It attaches to your drill, and it basically can be used on any sort of hexagon or octagon shaped screw.
Okay.
And all you do is just push it up against it, and it forms around it.
Oh.
It's got like these, I don't want to call them like beads in there.
Oh, no, I know what you're talking about. I've seen it. It's they're kind of these like flexible cylinders almost that form to the shape of the thing you're trying to screw in. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
I've seen like infomercials for that before. It's incredible.
It works just as well as that infomercial.
Every time I've seen one, I was like, if I did any house projects, this would be dynamite.
I want this.
Yeah.
This is the thing I want.
I was like, I don't think I'm going to start doing those, but this would be dynamite.
So anyway, that's how.
I'm just glad it wasn't a spring. You know, the upper
Ooh,
spring.
the springs are rough.
Yeah, me too.
Also, they're dangerous, man.
Well, and so the other thing with that too is I was just investigating the other hinges before I left to go.
Sure.
Because I'm making sure that this broken one didn't cause another one.
Sure, right.
Well, sure enough, I look up to the one right above, the one that broke, and you can already see it
starting
cracked.
to go.
And I'm like, I'm just getting a new one.
Might as well get two, yeah.
Because it just doesn't make sense to wait on this. But on top of it, you have to get the right number. So like the lower, like lowest to the ground is 1. Middle is 2.
Oh,
and
so
the
they're all
top one's
different.
3.
Okay.
Yeah, and you have to get the right one.
That's annoying.
Yeah. So thank God I watched the YouTube video ahead of time because I would have just gotten.
You got two of the same one, and
I
been
would
like
have gotten the same one.
Oh, was there any other damage, like inside the garage or anything?
No, the door is. You can tell that there's damage on the garage door, but
nothing to your car or anything like that.
Which is huge because I didn't know.
Yeah.
If when it broke, that thing could have shot off and just smacked
like,
my car,
like the springs do.
Uh-huh.
Like those things can kill you. You got to be careful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which By the way, I was having this conversation with my brother the other day because he had to replace a spring in his garage. How do we not have a better system to move our garage doors up and down than this thing that can break off at any time and murder you? Have you ever thought about that? You're just like standing in your garage waiting for the garage door to go up, and like every time I look at those springs and I was like, you're going to be the death of me one day.
It's like a hippo.
Exactly.
It is like a hippo. It's like being in a room with a hippo.
It is unexpectedly dangerous.
Well, I've never thought about that. And
you will now, every time.
So I hate you.
You can thank my mother for that. She has passed along some of her anxieties to me.
Great.
And the garage door spring is one of them.
Yeah. Well, I won't be bringing that home because my fiance will never, ever go out into the garage.
Yeah, hopefully she's not listening.
She would hit it and slam the door. But she's at the gym right now, so she probably is listening. So
sorry, Ashley.
Everything will be. She'll take her garage door opener inside now.
So what I do, if I'm getting in the car, I wait till I'm in my car and then I open it. But if I'm doing like yard work or something and I'm just opening it, I just stand there and say, I hope it's not today.
Yeah, see, I think I'll gamble the rest of my life. I'm a gambling man. I did go to the border and place that top 40 to top 5 bet yesterday.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I see you.
For all of you out there, by the way, the Open Championship is underway.
Yeah, they started about
7
midnight.
hours ago.
Yeah. Well, they're 6 or 7 hours ahead of us, right?
Right.
And so they started the time normal golf tournaments start over here, which is pretty early, about 7 in the morning.
Siwoo Kim, top 40. Max Homa, top 30. DJ, top 20. Victor Hovland, top 10. Scotty Scheffler, top 5. That's the bet, and that was in coordination with what Ryan Ballingy was talking about yesterday on the show, so we appreciate his time. Other guests on today's show that you can expect. We'll talk Purdue football at 7:45, and we'll get into the schedule breakdown right after at 8, but we'll talk with Tom Dienhart, writer and editor covering Purdue football for On 3. We will talk to Brian Edwards at 8:45, a little more of those betting lines. He'll get to hear my degenerate plays of the weekend.
Love it.
And how many MLB bets I missed yesterday.
Too many.
We will do the sports six-pack presented by Zipline Brewing at 9 o'clock. And we'll talk to Jessica Brabec, tournament director over at the Pinnacle Bank Championship, which takes place August 11th through the 14th. That's a Thursday through Sunday, and it's an incredible event. Whether you like golf or not, it's just kind of a great environment for just being outside, doing something. They have fun zones there. They do charitable events. They have a ton of beer tents and just other tents to just stay shaded.
The 19th hole is usually elite. I like to describe it to people as kind of a mini College World Series atmosphere where there's a lot of
the 19th hole.
Yeah, it's like a tent thing that they do.
That's the name of the tent?
Yeah. At least in years past it has been.
Okay,
they name it the 19th hole because it's right after the course.
Okay, I'm with you.
And that's usually where they have the like nighttime festivities with like drinks and things like that.
Gotcha.
So it's like an after party deal place.
Sure.
But yeah, it's kind of a mini College World Series atmosphere where you've got a lot of people. It's a good reason to be outside. It's a lot of fun.
And it's not overly crowded even on
not terrible
days.
Not terrible. No, it's
CWS is a nightmare.
It depends on when you go. If you're going like weekday during the day, it's probably comparable to that where there's people there, but it's probably not. If you're a little claustrophobic, you'll be okay.
Well, and let's not forget they have the bus shuttle
Absolutely.
to take you to and fro,
which is
Indian Creek.
Super helpful because the parking situation is probably, that is comparable to CWS.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's a lot easier this year, especially for media. And I know I'm kind of bragging when I say
a little
this.
Spoiled there.
Whatever. I'm covering the event.
For these media types.
Go drown in your own tears. No, because it's not the final stop of the Corn Ferry Tour.
Yeah.
The PGA isn't traveling for this.
That's good.
So they used to have like these big buses and extra officials, and
There's a whole
the
thing.
Golf Channel was here. They won't have that this year. So the parking goes
Should
from
be better.
the grassy area outside the main gates of Indian Creek to the parking lot,
actual
baby.
parking lot. And that's a pretty good sized parking lot out there,
It is.
out at Indian Creek.
Oh,
I've
yeah, it's
had
giant.
some friends get married out there, and it's a pretty good size.
Well, and you have to remember too, though, they have the concert venue set up out there. So
Yes.
the spots are limited for
Yeah.
media. And I don't know if you can get VIP parking. I don't know if that's something you can purchase. Maybe we'll ask Jessica.
I'm sure you can. There's you can buy just about anything you want.
But the concerts that they'll have out there, actually pretty fire.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a country music fan.
Well,
Like big names.
Like I
big
said,
artists.
they
names.
make it into a whole event, and they do a good job.
But even
with it.
last year, like I'll be critical. I don't think the names of the artists,
No, not always.
the caliber of what they could have had for that event really matched what was taking place golf-wise.
Sure.
This year, it's almost like the artists are
Surpassed
kind of
them?
superseding possibly the golf. Now, for me, I'm a sports fan, so I'll stick with golf, and I'm not a huge concert goer. But if you do like live music, I mean, some big names. Chris Jansen's one of them. Kip Moore, I think, is
Okay.
coming as well. So
Those could be the most
if you
famous country stars in the world, and I'd have no idea.
they're not the most famous, but I did get them right. Lanco is going to be here too. They sing that song, "The Greatest Love Story Ever Told." Come on, Ravi.
I don't listen to a lot of country music.
I think I don't know if that's the actual name of the song, but I think it's called "Greatest Love Story."
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I don't do. I was having this. My wife likes country music, and I was having this conversation with her that I probably cannot pick 3 country artists out of a lineup. Like I know a lot of the names, but if you showed me a picture of someone, I probably could not identify them. I could give you Garth Brooks.
You'll probably get this name, but I'm gonna.
I could give you Tim McGraw because of the movies. Like I could from like Blindside and stuff. I could give you Tim McGraw, and if we count Carrie Underwood as country, I could give you Carrie Underwood.
Oh, Carrie Underwood's country.
Yeah, so
she started country.
Yeah, so I could do. Those are the 3 that I could do.
Let me see here. I'm logging this off.
We
This
do
is horrible radio, but who's that?
You could do Blake Shelton.
Is that Morgan Wallen?
No, that's Luke Bryan.
I don't know.
American Idol.
You could do Blake Shelton, I'm sure.
I don't think I could do Blake Shelton. I really don't. I know there's one that's Australian.
Keith Urban.
Okay.
Nice work.
And he wears a funny cowboy hat. It's like not quite a normal cowboy hat. It's like a funny cowboy hat.
Yeah. It's an Australian
Is he
cowboy
the
hat.
one with the soul patch? I think he's the one with the soul patch.
I don't know. I don't pay close enough attention for that.
That's about all I got.
That's okay. That's okay.
Oh, is Blake Shelton the one that's married to Gwen Stefani?
Yeah.
That is
Okay,
correct.
I could maybe do him because I'm
He's on The
familiar
Voice.
with Gwen Stefani. Oh, actually, I see the voice videos on my TikTok sometimes, so I
Yeah.
could maybe do Blake Shelton.
Yeah, you could get him.
But yeah, not a lot besides
Okay.
that. I don't have a big familiarity with country.
What is your this is horrible sports radio, but what's your music
It's July? It's all horrible sports radio.
like what are you listening to on the daily
So
outside of podcasts?
I do listen to a lot of podcasts. Music wise, I do have a fairly eclectic range. It's just not country. I've never been a country fan. I'll do like old school, if you consider like Johnny Cash country. I like Johnny Cash.
Okay.
I'll do some Willie Nelson in there. So like the old school stuff I can do. Really love Johnny Cash. But my go-to,
The Man in Black.
The Man in Black. That's right.
Ring of Fire.
Actually, I think my favorite song of his is the cover of the 9 Inch Nails song, Hurt. Do you know that one, Shane?
I don't.
The one in his later career, yeah.
Yeah. He
Yeah,
covers this
off the
9
American albums.
Yep. He covers this 9 Inch Nails song called Hurt, and he does a way better job than 9 Inch Nails did. It's incredible. But in kind of my daily, I'm one of those people where, and I'm kind of getting to that age. I'm 35. So when I was younger, I used to always kind of think it was silly that older people kind of stopped listening to new music. And it's not that I don't listen to new music. Mostly I find it on TikTok. But my favorite stuff is basically the stuff that came out from when I was like 12 to 25.
Okay.
So like late 90s to 2010 basically is my sweet spot. And I'll do hip hop, I'll do rock, I'll do alternative. Most of the stuff in that time range I like. But then I go all the way back. I really like The Who from back in the day. I like the Beatles, obviously.
The Who. Is that the one that sings "You Won't Get Fooled Again"?
Yes, they do. They do all of the intros to the CSIs. Those were songs before CSI, just for
Nope, CSI was first in my
They
mind.
do My Generation. They do
Tommy.
They do Tommy. They do Bob O'Reilly.
Pinball Wizard.
Pinball Wizard's a great one. Yeah. So they're
so
an all-time band. But
that right there, you could show me pictures and I couldn't tell you who they are. So country, I could. That I
honestly, you could show me pictures of. Well, it depends on if you could show me pictures of the band members of the Who, like Roger Daltrey and stuff, like Pete Townsend. You could show me them when they were young, and I probably couldn't identify them because I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I've only seen them as old people. I could do the Beatles, obviously, because I mean it's the Beatles. But yeah, so I'm kind of all over the place. It's just I really don't like country music, like new country music.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I can hear you there.
Yeah,
because a lot of the old country is what I vibe with more. Not to say that like Luke Combs, I really like,
sure,
but he can kind of dabble in the new and the old.
Yeah,
and he's got kind of that voice where he is dabbling more old than he is new. So I really like Luke, and maybe it's more just his sound, his rasp.
Sure,
I really like. Now everybody's obsessed with Morgan Wallen. I like Morgan Wallen, but his songs are definitely new country.
Yeah,
which is
not
to.
Yeah, not really my vibe.
So when it comes down to it, though, like Tim McGraw is great, as you said.
Sure.
I grew up on Toby Keith. I thought Toby Keith was really good. A lot of people don't like Toby Keith.
Yeah, I don't know that I could name a Toby Keith song.
I probably could name 12.
Yeah.
So that was probably my favorite growing up, and I'm in the minority when I say that.
I like that Tim McGraw song that he did with Nelly. Over and Over, I think it was like an 05.
Oh yeah, sure.
He's like barely in that song, but
yep, like Brooks and Dunn is great.
Okay, that's like 90s mostly. Yeah.
Yep. George Strait was somebody that I grew up on too because my parents loved him.
Yeah, I don't know any George Strait. I know who he is, but I don't know any of his songs.
Like old country, I definitely vibe with more than I do new. Doesn't mean I can't get behind new country.
Sure.
But I mean, that was our childhood.
That's kind of how I am with hip hop. Like
that's the nostalgia behind the music. So
I love 90s hip hop. I love 2000s hip hop. I don't love a lot of the hip hop today where it's kind of like more mumble rap and stuff like that. I'm not a huge fan of, but that doesn't mean there's not hip hop songs today that I still like a lot.
Is that so? When you say hip hop, does that include like all of the new rap with like the Baby, Roddy Ricch? That's what you don't like.
That's a lot of the stuff that I struggle with.
Okay.
Hip hop changes every few years anyway, and it'll probably go back. It'll probably go back to something that you like.
It already has started to a little bit. It was really bad like 5 years ago with like Fetty Wap and those kind of people. That
1738.
Yeah, like that style of hip hop, I just really cannot get behind. But it started to get better where it's more about like the writing and the actual ability to rap and not just kind of putting a beat behind something and like mumbling. And I really don't. I know I sound like I'm 100 years old, but I really don't like.
Get off my line.
I really don't like that stuff at all.
Well, in the first hour,
we did not get to the Last Dance.
Music radio. No, we'll get to the Last Dance when we come back. So reaction to that, I did find time to sit down and watch after I changed the hinges on my garage door. I'll tell you this too. I felt more like a man after I was
Did
done.
you? Yeah, you always do.
I had
like grease on your hands.
Grease all over my hands. And
did you have to borrow tools to do it?
An old rag. No, I had my own. I actually have my own.
Nice.
So that's why I think I felt even more like a homeowner.
Oh,
I had everything and I did it for under $20.
Nice.
We'll talk about the Last Dance next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers. Happy to have you with us. So after the big fiasco of last night, all the troubles I went through, I got to watch the troubles of The Last Dance. And I think...
You found my Scottie Pippen?
I think I found your Scottie Pippen reference. And it came in episode 7. But before we get there, I want to start it off with, way to go, Craig. Are you really going to say I backstabbed this organization? Don't say that. I didn't backstab. That question, not a win.
Not a winner.
You know what, guys? I'm done. Thank you, guys.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Way to go, Craig.
You won't hear me say this a lot, but in Jerry Krause's defense, he stabbed Phil Jackson.
Stop right there. In Jerry Krause's defense. Okay, yes. I'm going to stop you. Okay, now you can continue.
He stabbed Phil Jackson directly in the front.
With a knife?
I mean, he was very aware of what
was
with everything that was going on. It's not like he was doing this secretly. He told Phil, "Hey, you're not coming back."
Right.
That's not like he was making moves behind the scenes.
Right. But did reporters know that at the time?
Yeah, because he kept announcing it to everybody.
Right.
He kept having these press conferences. Mm-hmm. He had one before the season. He had one mid-season, just being like, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're going through for a three-peat here. We have the best basketball player of all time, and there's no end in sight to our dominance. This coach is not coming back," which means that the best player of all time is not coming back because he's made it clear. That's the one thing about this that is so far different than what would happen now.
Mm-hmm.
You know how fast they would fire.
So frustrating.
If any of the top probably 20 players in the league was like, if this coach gets fired by the GM, I'm leaving.
They'd say, okay, he can stay.
They'd either keep the coach or they fire the GM that.
Yeah, it's only the other way around. If the player says, "Hey, I'm leaving if you don't get rid of this head coach," whether they come off a title or not, because we've seen that.
Yeah, no, they're
over
gone.
The past 3 seasons,
gone.
Vogel was
David Blatt took him to the finals with LeBron, and he's like, "I don't like this guy. Let's get rid of him." If the superstar doesn't like the coach is gone.
Mm-hmm. Whether or not you won a title or not.
Yes.
And that's what I find crazy because you know me, I'm not a huge NBA fan, but when I see a coach get fired after he wins a title a year before, I'm like, what? How do you just let this guy go? Now he'll get picked up somewhere, so it's fine. But I just can't wrap my head around that. Now I get it though. If a player, your star player, Antetokounmpo, LeBron, whoever it is, feels like they are held back because of the coaching style and schematics and things that come along with it. But you're right. In regards to this situation, when you're talking about the best player in all of basketball that this world had ever seen at the time, could still be today in arguments
depends on
all over, no matter who you lie with. It's insane to me that a short 5'8", little chubby guy.
I think 5'8's generous, but
maybe it is generous. Maybe it's more like 5'2", chubby guy can just have all the power in this moment.
Well, and it's wild that Jerry Reinsdorf let him. You know what I mean? It's because losing Michael Jordan devalues his organization.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe he never intended to sell, so it didn't matter. But allowing Jerry Krause to dictate that Michael Jordan is leaving because he wants to get rid of Phil Jackson is one of the wildest things. Jerry Reinsdorf not intervening and saying, Jerry Krause, either get off of your vendetta or you're gone, is the wildest thing. And that doesn't really get talked about that much.
He just kind of let him go. He said,
he
Jerry,
did, but
you're the mastermind behind this.
Well,
so you are the one that's going to. I'm going to trust your decision.
Except before the 97-98 season, because Jerry wanted to get rid of Phil the year before. Jerry Reinsdorf intervened and was like, "Hey, we're bringing Phil back." They went and sat down and they brought him back. So he had intervened before. It's not like it was a total just hands off, you do your thing. He had intervened before, and the fact that he didn't choose to make sure that they brought Michael Jordan back again. And listen, I don't know how much of it was because they were heading into a lockout and all that kind of stuff, and before the 99 season, which the 98-99 season, which they kind of knew about, was probably heading that direction. But to allow a player of that caliber, who was still in 1998, I believe only 34 years old. Because he was, I think, if my math is right,
because he started in 85, and he would have came right out of college, which would have been 22.
So he was 21, I think, because he left after his junior year.
You're right. Yep, junior year.
So 84 to 90, so 20. He'd been like 34, 35, somewhere in there. The fact that he was allowed to walk away, I think he was 35.
Yeah,
I think. The fact that he was allowed to walk away because of Jerry Krause's ego and vendetta with Phil Jackson.
Hey, I'm not saying it was a good idea or decision.
No. Well, and Jordan said it earlier in in one of the earlier episodes, he goes, yeah, I understand they want to rebuild, but just because you rebuild doesn't mean, like, he's like, the Cubs have been rebuilding for 47 years. And look at the Bulls since Michael Jordan. They've had moments, but they've never been back to a finals. They have barely, I don't even know if they've been to a conference finals since Jordan was there. No. Like, he was right. You don't, and it's the thing that I've said this before. It's the thing that makes me mad about the way the Warriors handled the roster the last couple of years. When you have a generational talent, you go all in on that generational talent because you're not getting another one soon. Like, this isn't the Colts where you go from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck, right? And even with Andrew Luck, they still didn't go back to a Super Bowl, right? They went from generational talent to generational talent. I mean, the only time that it's worked, I think, is Montana to Steve Young, where they both won Super Bowls. So if you have a generational talent, you just go all in on that generational talent and leave everything else aside. Jerry Krause, not a big Jerry Krause
Well,
guy.
in episode 7, too, that was the time that MJ's father was murdered.
Yes, yeah.
Very tough time for him, which caused him to leave basketball.
Yeah.
And just retire. I'll say shortly after. I was about to say abruptly, but how can you consider something abrupt when you are dealing with this sort of thing? I'm not going to sit here and say I know how to deal with that situation.
Well, I also think that he was considering it anyway. Like, if you listen to some of the stories about how burnt out he was, about there's the one guy that's talking, the one reporter who's talking about.
But his dad could have been the one that said, "Hey, stick with this,"
right?
And he would have done it.
Yes,
and so it
was definitely a precipitating factor for sure.
I think that was the trump card.
But I don't think he retires if he wasn't already thinking about it. His dad's death certainly pushes him right over the edge with it and makes it that decision.
But he would have had a conversation with his dad, and he would have played the 94-5 season.
Probably.
If his dad were still around.
Probably. But I don't think he does it if it's not already on his mind.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And this gets into kind of the gambling suspension conspiracy theory that people have, that he actually retired because of his gambling problems and whatever, and David Stern secretly suspended him. And the reason I used to give it a little bit of credence, the reason that I don't anymore is when you look at the last 2 episodes we watched yesterday or 2 days ago, and then you look at this one where the media is kind of trying to actively bring Michael Jordan down.
That seemed
and then here's the part that I didn't know about until the first time I watched this, was that the media recklessly speculated that Jordan's father's death was tied to his gambling. That's the part that I was like, oh, the gambling conspiracy theory is just more of that BS. That's where it really turned me around, because it was like the media is just recklessly speculating and being totally irresponsible with it. And I really feel like those two are more connected than I realized in the past. The retirement gambling conspiracy theory and his father's murder gambling conspiracy theory. It really is.
It's really disappointing to know that you work in media and know that happens still today.
Well, and it doesn't even make sense in this situation, right? Like, okay, so why does somebody get killed over a gambling debt, right? When it doesn't get paid. Is there any indication that Michael Jordan didn't pay up every time?
Right. And that he didn't have the funds?
Of course he had the funds.
Continue to pay up.
He's Michael Jordan. He he literally wrote checks.
Right.
And the fact that it doesn't even make sense. That's the part that is the most disappointing, is just a tiny bit of critical thinking debunks all of it. It's like, oh, you don't kill somebody for paid gambling debts. And there's no indication. Nobody has ever been like, yeah, Jordan welched on that bet.
And anybody with a healthy conscience would know not to write that article.
Or at least would dig into it to see if there was any truth there. Right? That's the part that, so I like I said, I used to kind of give a little bit of credence to the suspension, gambling suspension. And then after seeing this, I was like, oh no, it was just more of their reckless nonsense.
Okay, so we'll hold off on more thoughts from the
We got to get to Scottie Pippen.
Maybe around 8:30. We could even close the show with it.
We got a little gap.
We'll see.
We got to get to Scottie.
We'll get there, though, because
this was the one.
I think Ravi pointed it out, and it came true here. But we're going to change gears and talk Purdue football with Tom Dienhart next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Sawinski in motion. O'Connell, they can bring a blitz. There's a pass caught. Payne Durham dragging a tackler close to the goal line. What's the call? Is he in? Yes! Touchdown, Boilermakers. Payne Durham with the touchdown reception as Purdue beat the all-out blitz. Aiden O'Connell took a hit and got the throw away anyway.
Welcome back, Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers. You won't be hearing those names this year when you watch the Purdue-Nebraska game, but we will continue our schedule breakdown and talk about the new guys, the new faces, with Tom Dienhart now, writer and editor, covering Purdue football for On3 at Tom Dienhart1 on Twitter. Tom, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We're getting closer. Next week we've got Big Ten Media Day in Indianapolis. And then, Purdue starts camp August 1st. So, yeah, the season's not far away at all.
Hard to believe. Really hard to believe that it's already here. But now as it gets closer to, I was telling Ravi this yesterday, it seems like it's going really slow. It's like, oh, no. Every day feels like 2 days as we get close to college football. But talking about Purdue, team returns 6 starters on offense this year and have hit the marks offensively that they were predicted to over the last 2 seasons. But Purdue loses the mastermind behind it all, and they lose Aiden O'Connell, who it felt like he was there for about 20 years. Do you envision Purdue offensively to take a step back this year, or do you think by adding an OC like Harrell and a QB like Card, both of which I really like, will keep them at their previous marks of roughly 30 points a game and 400 yards per game?
Yeah, I mean, nobody really knows, right? That's going to be the fun storyline to sort of watch unfold in West Lafayette here. Graham Harrell, of course, brings that air raid offense. He says it's going to be air raid based. So he says they're not going to throw the ball 80 times a game. But again, I think we all know it's going to be quarterback centric. Probably be more pass heavy than run heavy. But, like all coordinators, he wants to have some semblance of balance. And I do think Purdue could have some balance. I do think they have a chance to be able to run the football. They've got a pretty nice little mix of running backs. Devin Mockety's back, almost rushed for 1,000 yards last year. They moved the old Iowa wide receiver, Tyrone Tracy, running backs. They got some good options there. The big key is going to be the line coming together. They brought in 6 transfers there to try to help. So, yeah, that's hoping. And of course, Hudson Card's the trigger man, right? He's going to be the straw that stirs the drink. He's going to have to excel, I think, if Purdue really wants to try to reach its postseason goals.
Tom, we're looking at a Purdue team with a lot of unknowns, right? First-time head coach in Ryan Walters, new offensive coordinator in Graham Harrell, new quarterback for the first time in seemingly a decade in Hudson Card. Is there something on this Purdue team that you think you can count on, that you look at the roster or a specific unit that you say, this is where they can hang their hat while they figure kind of the rest of it out?
Again, I think it probably is the offense. Of the 2 units, I think there's more, proven commodities on that side of the ball. Again, the line, which is obviously the big key, that's going to be the area that's the real X factor. But I think there's enough there to build on. I talked about the 6 transfers, some good veterans coming back too. But again, Hudson Card, he started some games for Texas. Talked about the running backs, veterans there. They don't have a real true number 1 wide receiver with Charlie Jones and all, but I think there's enough veterans there to make that a nice unit. And then tight end, they lost Payne Durham, but they have Garrett Miller coming off an injury. And Garrett Miller's he's more talented than Payne Durham. I think he's probably a surefire NFL draft choice. So I think offensively, that may be where Purdue has to hang its hat early this season, against what looks like one of the tougher schedules in the Big Ten.
Tom, a defensive-minded head coach. So you go from a heavily offensive-minded guy to a heavily defensive-minded head coach. Does that elevate the team early on, or does that hinder the team early on, do you think?
I mean, I have no idea. I think going back to when Ryan Walters was hired, it was a surprise. I think it raised some eyebrows. I think Purdue zigged, and everybody thought it was going to zag. Hiring first of all, a guy from the defensive side of the ball. And secondly, a guy who's 37 years old who's never been a head coach. So, but then I know there's always risk no matter who you hire, no matter what their experience level is, no matter what their resume says. There's always the unknowns. Nobody knows, right? Nebraska fans should understand that more than anybody. But you know what? If you're Purdue, I think guys sometimes you have to think outside the box and try to do something different. Very energetic staff, connecting really well so far with the recruits. Off to a nice job there on the recruiting trail with the 2024 kids, and just different vibe overall from the Braum era. And again, he brings the defensive mindset, right? And you think Purdue's always created a quarterback's offense, and that's where Purdue's always hung its hat. And I think still wants to do that with Graham Harrell's offense. But here comes Ryan Walters and his 5-man front defense. And you guys saw last year, the last couple of years, especially last year, was really the benchmark in the Big Ten. So maybe Purdue can upgrade its play on that side of the ball to complement what typically always is a pretty salty offense.
Tom, you mentioned a reasonably difficult schedule this year. Obviously, with all the changes, what do you think expectations are around West Lafayette heading into the season?
You look at the Las Vegas over-under win projections. Came out, I don't know, a month or so ago, and Purdue was at 5.5 wins.
They're still there.
Yeah, and I think that's probably pretty spot on. I think a 6-6 record, if they can somehow squeeze out 6 wins, get to a bowl, in my mind, I think that would be a pretty good season, in a season transition, with the personnel unknowns, the schedule, the new coaching staff. again, just a lot of moving parts, a lot of unknowns, a lot of question marks. So having said all that, I think Vegas was pretty spot on. Like I said, in my mind, 6-6. If Ryan Walters can do that, certainly will have been a job well done, I think, in his debut season.
We're talking to Tom Dienhart, and we're breaking down the schedule for Nebraska as they take on Purdue later on in the season, kind of like midway point. He's the writer and editor covering Purdue football for On 3. A lot of unknowns. Okay, that's what we keep hearing, just a lot of unknowns. How do you make a Purdue fan feel confident about this season, knowing that there is just so much uncertainty that comes along with it?
I think, Ryan Walters' defensive background and success on that side of the ball has to give the fans some optimism that maybe that unit can be a cut above, if you will. He seems to know what he's doing on that side of the ball. Was at Illinois the last 2 years as coordinator. Before that was at Missouri, Barry Odom and Eli Drinkwitz. So again, had a lot of success and has a unique scheme, that 5-man scheme. So I think that should give him some optimism. And then we talked about the offense. I think Hudson Card in particular should give fans hope if you're in West Lafayette. That was the guy, the moment after Hudson Card was hired, the moment after Ryan Walters was hired, the first thing he did was go get Hudson Card. That was the quarterback he wanted out of the portal. He was hired a day or two later, flew to Texas. Between then, he had hired Graham Harrell, who was in Texas recruiting for West Virginia. Drew Graham Harrell a Purdue shirt and said, we're going to Austin to go recruit Hudson Card. They went up there and we talked him into coming for a visit, and they closed the deal a week or so later. So he's a guy who was a pretty touted quarterback coming out of Austin, Lake Travis High School. Like I said, started about 5 games. And this is a talented guy who has that dual threat ability to really make this offense go. So the key's going to be keeping him healthy, I think. I'll tell you what, guys, all spring there was just effusive praise for Hudson Card, and the coaches and the players. So they're really pumping him up. And a little bit we got to see his spring ball. He's looked good, but I guess we'll see when the lights turn on for Purdue on September 2nd when they open at home against Fresno State.
Tom, I want to ask you about the other side of things. Andrew was asking for reasons to be optimistic. I'm curious, is there a spot that gives you the most reason for concern, whether a position group, or maybe even the way the schedule sets up?
Again, I think I talked a little bit about the offensive line, right? If you're not good up front on both sides of the ball, you've got little chance. I think it's always easy to get skill position guys and guys that play on the edges. There's a lot of good, fast, athletic guys. But the trenches are always what set you apart in football. And that offensive line, like I said, for Purdue, has got some questions to answer. That's why they brought in 6 transfers. On the other side of the ball, it's the back end, it's the secondary. Cornerback spot in particular. 5 transfers are coming in, plus a junior college transfer. So that shows you what they thought of the cornerback talent they inherited. So can that secondary group in particular, the cornerbacks, come together quickly? So those are probably the 2 positions, one on each side of the ball, that have the biggest questions and maybe hold the most intrigue as Purdue heads to camp here in about 2 weeks.
Tom, thanks so much for taking some time this morning. We appreciate it, and hopefully we can do this again closer to game time.
You got to always enjoy it. Take care, fellas.
Thank you. That's Tom Dienhart, writer and editor covering Purdue football for On 3 at Tom Dienhart 1 on Twitter. We will get into our own thoughts after the break, right at the top of the hour, right at 8 o'clock. And before we go any further, let's tell you one more time about some amazing sponsors that help us do this thing each and every day, and that is Dingman's Collision Center. Dingman's, your one-stop shop for all your car needs. 4 great locations. They've been voted Best of Omaha for 18 years running. Those 4 locations in the metro area and the standalone mechanical shop, I should say, at 120th and Maple. They invest in the latest technology to stay up to date, to make sure your car is ready to go and that they can provide service to you. They're great members of the community, and we support local because they're family-owned and a family-run local business. After the break, more on Purdue football next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Play clock is down to 2. O'Connell finally gets the handoff to Maccabee on the left side. Touchdown! Touchdown, Devin Maccabee! And the Boilermakers take a 2-score lead with 3:13 to play.
Hey, top of the hour on Coffee and Cream on ESPN Radio in Omaha, live on Twitter, live on YouTube. Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers in the chairs this week. Ravi will go with a couple of new faces next week. It is a trio of new faces.
Yeah, we've got 3, I think.
About
yeah. We've got Sauter Monday through Wednesday. Then I believe we've got Severe on Thursday, and then our buddy Jacob Padilla on Friday.
Which is great. Good preps day to have Jacob Padilla
Absolutely
with you on that Friday. But as we continue conversations here, we just got done talking to Tom Dienhart. He gave us a little bit of insight on Purdue this season. And, it still seems like the term to use to describe Purdue football is unknown.
Yeah.
Nobody really knows what they're going to get out of Purdue. Last season, they're featured in the Big Ten championship game. And it's like, okay, you would think that after that, you'd say, I know a little bit about what I can expect out of this Purdue team. And nobody really has an answer just yet. They have a new head coach. They have a new quarterback. They have a new offensive coordinator. Their head coach is a defensive coach for the first time in a long time. Someone who just excels watching that side of the football. And he's young, really young, as Dienhart mentioned, at 37 years old. A new quarterback who hasn't really gotten a chance to really prove himself just yet. And I really want to set it there first. So Travis on Twitter brings up a good point that Card has never really impressed him as a quarterback because he doesn't have that experience. And Purdue might catch a couple of teams off guard with big points in games, but definitely a regression in year one. I'll agree with the part that there will be a regression.
Yeah, I agree.
I won't go as far to say that Card hasn't impressed me yet as a quarterback because I haven't seen enough of him to really make that the scale.
Right, yeah.
Where I can say he has impressed me or he hasn't impressed me. Because I lean more in Card's favor. I think Card's a really good quarterback. I think he was underused at Texas. I don't think they really found a true fit for him there when they brought in Quinn Ewers. He was obviously the better quarterback, so I'm cool with sitting Hudson Card. But when he took over, I thought Hudson Card was very productive. He gave Alabama a run for their money, but they never allowed him to use his legs.
Yeah.
He came into college football as a dual threat quarterback. He was one of the top quarterback recruits in his class. He had tons of offers. He had the list that you would want from a quarterback. And now he's working under an OC who is very high tempo, who likes to put the ball on the ground, likes to throw the ball through the air, as Dienhart alluded to as well. He's an air raid guy, but he's kind of not an air raid guy. Like he likes the air raid, but he's also willing to eat up some clock at the same time, but he wants to move quickly. And I think that's the way that Hudson Card likes to move too. He's only had 1,500 yards and 11 touchdowns in 3 seasons at Texas, but expect his rushing numbers to go way, way up. I got a question for you, Ravi.
Yeah.
Purdue has only had one quarterback to throw for 3,000 yards and rush for 500 yards in a single season. I'm not saying that Hudson Card's going to throw for 3,000 yards, but I'm not also going to throw it out the window either. Can you tell me who that was?
You asked me the same question last year.
No, I did. I know I did not. Yes,
3,500.
Purdue has only had one quarterback to do that.
Man,
and I'm asking you because it's a name you know.
It's a wrong
That's
question.
what I'm thinking. It's not Breeze, is it?
It is Drew Brees.
Man, him rushing for 500 yards is wild.
In the year 2000, he threw for 3,600 yards and rushed for 521 yards.
That's wild.
Did he end up being good?
He was fine.
Was he third in the Heisman voting that year? Did he win the Maxwell Trophy?
He's okay
that year. All I'm saying is
wildly disappointing NFL career, though.
Yeah, horrible. Horrible. I mean, he completely fell off too.
Yeah, after like 20 years, he was nothing.
Yeah. I mean, did you see him play last year? Like he didn't even throw a pass. No. So when you're weighing this, hey, can he throw? Can he run? I think you're gonna see a little bit more out of the run with Hudson Card, and a little less out of those numbers that Drew Brees could throw back in the year 2000.
Yeah.
But you're going to see production. Production is that term. And it's because they have Graham Harrell, who perfectly matches up with Hudson Card.
Yeah, so I'm a little more hesitant on the Graham Harrell part of it, not as an offensive coordinator, but I don't know how much track record we have of saying that he'll actually try and find some balance. I know that's a thing that they say, especially the air raid super pass heavy guys. Honestly, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Mark Whipple last year coming into Nebraska, where he's like, oh, we'll do what we're good at and whatever, and we'll find balance. And these guys don't want to find balance. They want to do what they're good at. They want to air the ball out. And listen, does that mean they're not going to run the ball at all ever? No.
Well, and think about what happened last year, right? If you look at his numbers, West Virginia's numbers last year was only 227 yards through the air and over 140 on the ground. So he does find a way to balance.
He can. I don't think that's going to be his default. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with a mobile quarterback like Hudson Card, somebody that does have. And to be fair, the air raid and spread systems will tend to do a QB run more so than a lot of your traditional run game. So maybe that factors in here too. I think with his background and his roots, I don't know how much Harold is going to want to slow things down at all, even if it's in the best interest of Purdue in any given situation.
Well, and that's in the best interest of the head coach is to slow things
right,
down.
Because he's a defensive-minded guy. So that'll be really interesting to see how that plays out, to see if Harold does kind of adapt and evolve as a coach. I like what he does, but I think you also have to kind of accept what he does.
Well, and that's kind of every coach tandem, right? You have one guy that is heavily focused on offense, and then the head coach can either focus on offense too or defense too. And if you're the head coach, obviously you oversee the whole operation. But you'll always find them leaning one way or the other. So it's either the defensive coordinator has to really step up and be that so-called number 2 guy, or the offensive coordinator is going to have to step up and be that number 2 guy. And in Purdue's system, I think that's what you have here. You have a head coach that oversees the whole thing, but he'll focus a lot on the defense and the schemes there and everything because that's what he's good at. And he's going to leave the offense to Harold. Now he's going to make sure he manages that. But he's not going to insert his voice as much as he would on the defensive side of the ball.
I'm curious, because I think in general you're right, but it just kind of got my wheels turning a little bit here. Which way do you think Rule leans?
See, and it's
because he doesn't seem like he does.
I would say offense because he's an offensive line coach. That's what he's good at.
Yeah.
But he played defense.
I think he's position coached defense as well.
I would still lean he needs to focus more on the offense because if you look at who they have in the system right now, nobody really knows what the offense of Marcus Satterfield's going to look like. And you wonder, okay, now I'm going to retract because I would say you'd wonder what that offense is going to do in year one, but Rule knows that defense is going to lead to wins in year one.
Yes.
So he's probably going to shade with Tony White, but he may just micromanage that and let White run with it because he had success at Syracuse last year and do his thing. All right, I'm going to go back on my point. I retracted. I'm going to go back on my point. So Matt Rule is going to lean offense because of his offensive line mind, and because I think that's where the piece of the operation that needs more work than the defense because of the brain that you have running the defense. Not to say that Rule won't be involved,
right?
But in a scale of if there's 70% more need somewhere, I would say that's offense versus defense.
I would agree this year, and I'm curious, and we don't know this yet because he's just starting his first year here. I'm curious if that won't flip back and forth with Rule based on which unit needs the most attention. Because I agree, the offense needs the most attention right now. I think the defense is set up a little bit better for success. And I think they've got more pieces to kind of carry the team there. And so it would make sense if he leans, hey, the offense needs a little bit more cajoling and getting right, and especially with Raiola on the offensive line, I think that's a place he's going to focus quite a bit. But I wonder as we move forward if he won't shift focus year to year. Because like you said, most guys have a pretty strong preference, right? Most guys like Ryan Walters, always going to be pretty defensive minded. Bo Pelini here at Nebraska was always very defensive minded.
Jeff Brown will go to Louisville
always
and stay on the offense.
Very offensive minded. Like Jimbo Fisher down at Texas A&M, he coaches the quarterbacks. He does the offense. Like that's his baby, right? I don't see Rule that way. I don't see him having a strong preference for either side of the ball. So, but I think he's the exception that proves your point. I think he's the exception that proves most guys do have a lean, but it just kind of got the wheels turned. I was like, I don't know where.
And I think
I don't know where Rule leans.
You could make a case for both.
Yeah,
you really could.
Which is kind of the point there.
Even Dave on YouTube says would think Rule would lean more defense this year because he doesn't know Tony White. Would want to lean.
Oh, that's a fair point.
Understand more. Or I'm sure would want to learn. I believe that's what that's supposed to say, and follow to understand more. and he knows what Sat does or will do.
That's a fair point too. I think he probably
there are points to
both.
both.
Yeah, there really is. And that's why Rule's an interesting case here. But to go back to Purdue, we were talking Hudson Card, and I do think there's talent there, right? But I think he's thrown less than 200 passes in his career through 3 years at Texas. There's not a lot of track record there. And so...
But I really believe starting last year, taking over for Ewers was good for him.
Sure, yeah.
Because it finally got him back into, I could do this consistently on a weekly basis.
You get some reps under your belt. And he had, for when he played, he had just over 100 attempts last year, almost 70% completion, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. He had good numbers when he played. It's just there's not a ton of track record there. And so it'll be really interesting to see how he does as a full-time, unquestioned starter, because that can be really freeing for some guys to be able to focus on what they do and they actually perform a lot better. Some guys do better when they're in a competition and need to prove themselves week to week. So it'll be interesting to see how Hudson Card does there. And it'll be interesting to see where he falls in the pecking order of Big Ten quarterbacks, because if he lives up to his initial recruiting hype of high 4-star, as you mentioned, offers from anybody you could possibly want offers from, then he probably ends up pretty high on that list, I would guess. And even some of the guys that are probably listed ahead of him, like a J.J. McCarthy, he's obviously got way more track record. I still am not 100% sold on the leap that everybody's expecting from him from year 2 to year 3, year 1 to year 2 as a starter. So that's going to be really interesting to me, is where Hudson Card ends up in that pecking order.
Quarterback play is just going to be interesting altogether in the Big Ten.
Honestly, the most proven guy you might have might be in Maryland, in Tagovailoa.
Yeah,
weirdly enough, right? Because you're getting so much turnover. Iowa's got a new quarterback. Ohio State has a new quarterback. Purdue has a new quarterback. Wisconsin has a new quarterback. Minnesota has a new quarterback. Nebraska has a new quarterback. There's been a ton.
Penn State?
Illinois has a new quarterback. We haven't done Penn State yet. I don't remember if Penn State has a new one or not.
I got to go back and look.
But so many of Northwestern has a new quarterback who we did yesterday. So many of these teams. That's what I just named. 10 teams out of the 14?
Yeah,
that's
you did.
That's almost the entire league has a new quarterback. Basically, the only people returning are Michigan and Maryland.
Did Sean Clifford? He was the starter last year, right?
Yeah.
They will go with Drew Aller this year.
Yeah. So
new quarterback.
Penn State, new quarterback. You're talking about of the vast majority of the league here. And if you look at, I like to look through my magazines and stuff and see where they rank people. If you look at kind of where the ratings for the Big Ten are, the two situations that we know have returning quarterbacks in Michigan and Maryland are at the top of the rankings, right? Because they're about the only two known situations.
So they're
here.
number one. Michigan's number one.
Michigan's number one. Maryland's number 2.
Interesting. Oh, let me guess number 3.
Okay.
People are so high on the kid at Ohio State. I'll go with 3 at Ohio State.
It is Ohio State. Guess where Purdue is? This is where it gets interesting.
Oh, they have Hudson Card low. So, because I remember looking at rankings, gosh, this would have been about back in May, maybe. I'm going to say Purdue is 12th.
Ooh, so Lindy's is actually high on the Hudson Card.
Really?
So I'm looking at the Lindy's Big Ten magazine. We gave Phil Steele a plug yesterday. Also terrific. I like looking at multiple magazines to get different perspectives. They've got Purdue at 4.
Wow.
Right. So they are very high on Hudson Card. And it looks like part of it is because of how intent Ryan Walters was on landing him. That seems to be part of the big reason, because they thought he was a great fit with Graham Harrell. But
okay, so then running backs have to be Michigan.
Running backs, Michigan. Yep, absolutely.
Wide receivers, Ohio State.
Yep, absolutely.
Michigan for O-line.
Yep.
Okay. Defensive line, Michigan.
Michigan is 3rd.
Really? I think they're going to be much better than that. People aren't giving Michigan enough credit.
Can you guess 1, 2?
1 and 2 on the defensive line.
And I think number 2 should be number 1.
I'll say.
What's that?
No, Lance, not that.
It's number 2 is tricky.
Yes, indeed.
But if you think about it, it makes sense.
I'll say Iowa.
Iowa is 5.
Good night. This is Andrew's on the struggle bus.
We are making moves out here.
Penn State?
Penn State is 4.
I'm getting there.
Well,
I don't want to say Ohio State. I don't want to say it.
Maybe you should.
I don't want to say Ohio State because they're so offensive heavy. Okay. I'm going to say Ohio State.
They're 1. 2 is the interesting to me. I think 2 should be 1.
Ohio State?
This is a team we've talked about. Number 2 is
Illinois.
Illinois is 2. They're bringing back some studs on the defensive line and the defensive front in general.
Ohio State?
I think they just like the talent. I mean, you got a couple guys there like Sawyer that are pretty legit. Hall and Hamilton and Williams on the inside too. Like they've got.
Hey, I'll tell you what. I'm more confident in Hudson Card than Ohio State being number 1 on the.
I think Illinois is going to have the best defensive line in the conference this year. Illinois' defensive line, like we talked about a couple days ago, is really, really good. You want to do linebackers?
Gosh, this
one's tough. This one's
really
really tough.
Secondary, I think, would be a little bit easier.
Yeah,
I'd probably still lean Michigan in the secondary.
Michigan's 1 in the secondary.
Is special teams on there?
Yeah.
Nebraska.
7th.
It's Indiana.
yeah,
Indiana is 2nd.
I knew Indiana was up there.
Yeah. Iowa's 1 on special teams.
Are they?
Yeah. Secondary is Michigan 1, Ohio State 2.
Okay, and then linebackers.
Linebackers is tough.
Man, I don't know. Is it a team that I would guess?
The top 3 are the teams you would guess.
The teams I would guess. Okay.
Yeah.
So if it's tough, I'll go with Penn State.
Penn State's 1.
Which I don't think is a bad play there.
No, I don't either. It's Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan 1, 2, 3 at the linebacker spots. Nebraska checks in. Did we leave Nebraska off the list? What am I looking? Oh, yeah, I think there's a typo on this one. But
what's the typo?
There's no.
They already put UCLA and USC in there?
No, there's no Nebraska on here for the linebackers.
Oh, must not like them.
That's wild. I can't figure out who they double printed because we're on the air and I'm trying to keep talking. But
well, aside from all of that, I'll take up some time for you here. Season expectation for Purdue. I will say, in regards to a previous point from Travis, great listener, P1.
Love Travis.
They will take a big step back. There will be regression. It's not going to be a Big Ten championship game appearance for Purdue again this year. Over under set at 5.5. The plus odds on the over 6-6 is what Dienhart said he could see. I don't know if I could really see that. If you look up and down on Purdue's schedule, you could lock in that they're going to win 2 games for sure, maybe 3 games for sure with Fresno State off the rip. And then they do play Indiana and Rutgers this year.
That helps.
But then I think there's like 5 others. No, you know what? Maybe there's 4 wins because there's another non-conference game that I'm missing right now, not looking at the schedule.
For Purdue?
Yeah.
So they've got Fresno State, Virginia Tech, Syracuse.
Okay. And then it's Indiana and Rutgers to close the season, right?
Northwestern Indiana.
Northwestern.
They don't have Rutgers. They don't have Rutgers.
So Northwestern was the team I was thinking of. So at least 3 wins there for sure. I think you could grab 4 with Virginia Tech because their over-under also is set at 5.5.
And they were only 3-8 last year. They struggled.
Yeah, they weren't fantastic. And then you have the Syracuse of the world, right? Which
don't know what to do with them.
Should be in a regression as well. Nebraska's on that list. Illinois is on that list of maybes. Minnesota's on the list of maybes. You could see them getting to 6 wins if they stole 1 or 2 of those. But aside from that, I'm not too confident that I see above 5.
So I think Fresno State, Syracuse, Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota are all coin flip games. That's 7 coin flip games for them. Mm-hmm. So if you win half of those, the coin flips go your way, you can see 6, right? You can get to 6 wins pretty manageably there. If you end up 2 and 5 in those games, you end up at somewhere in the 4 or 5 range, mm-hmm. right? So I think 5.5 is the right number because of how many coin flip games. I don't feel super confident that the over is the way to go there. I do think I think Tom was right in that a 6-6 bowl game season is successful for Purdue this year. I don't know that that's what you can expect, but I think that's a reasonable, hey, this would be a good year for us in year one of Ryan Walters, in year one of Graham Harrell, in year one of Hudson Card. The funny thing about Purdue last year was they were actually like really close to 10 wins. 2 of their losses, Penn State and Syracuse, were by a total of 7 points in the first 3 weeks of the season. And if they pull off either one of those, they're really close to 10 wins. Obviously, they lose the Big Ten title game and then they get smoked by LSU in the bowl game, but they were probably closer to 10 wins than they were to 6. This year, I think if they get to 6, they should be pretty happy with the progress of Ryan Walters in year one.
Now, post-spring Big Ten quarterback rankings, according to USA Today. We talked about Hudson Card being what number on Lindy's list? 4. J.J. McCarthy and Tagovailoa, 1 and 2.
Yep.
Right? Kind of what we thought.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Kyle McCord at 3, which I'll believe it when I see it.
I think they're just giving Ohio State quarterback benefit of the doubt, right? Mm-hmm. Because of what we've seen from them production-wise, kind of guy after guy after guy. I think they're just assuming the system, as much as anything, will lead to production.
Mm-hmm. Drew Aller at 4 on this list.
Okay.
Cade McNamara comes in at 5.
So Lindy's has him at 6.
We'll see if Brian Ferentz can reach that threshold.
Well, that's the thing is it's less about Cade McNamara and more about the whole Iowa offense in general, which is historically not awesome.
6 should be Tanner Mordecai. It is on this list.
Yeah, I've got him at 7.
I would say Jeff Sims next. No, they put Hudson Card next at 7. Okay, so Hudson Card comes in at 7 on this list and Jeff Sims at 8. So that is at least your top 8.
Where do they have Minnesota on that list?
Kelly McManus has been about 10 on most lists.
Okay.
He is 11th on this list.
So Lindy's has him at 8. They're a little higher on him than on McManus and on Card. They're a little higher.
Ben Bryant is getting a lot of love on a lot of these lists.
I mean, he's got more track record than a lot of these guys.
But he also plays for Northwestern.
Well, that's the problem, right? I mean, really, it is. If he's coming off of the season he had at Cincinnati at almost any other school, he's going to be higher on these lists.
There's your breakdown of Purdue. We'll do Michigan State tomorrow, and Ravi will resume Wisconsin, Maryland, and Iowa next week. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, let's revisit our talk about The Last Dance and the Scottie Pippen show.
Yep.
Way to go, Greg.
Greg.
Take a break.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back. Before we go any further with this talk about The Last Dance, because I have things I want to say.
You got thoughts?
I have some thoughts.
Okay.
I want to tell you first about the Omaha Storm Chasers because they are at home this week and have been taking on the St. Paul Saints. And today's Thursday. And you know what that means? It means it's $2 day at the ballpark.
Let's go.
You get a can of beer, get a hot dog. Guess how much you're paying, Rowdy?
$2.
That's right. How'd you guess that?
Because you said it was $2 Thursday.
Oh, it's that promotional day at the ballpark. I really enjoy the Storm Chaser games too.
It's a fun way to be outside in the summer.
Well, yes, and I got to attend the games when Memphis was in town, so AAA affiliate for the Cardinals, and I think I went to every game.
Okay.
I may have missed one.
You know what I like doing is I like when guys are on rehab assignments, and so you can see
and so that's
high-end major leaguers.
That's what people underestimate when they go to a ballpark.
Yeah.
Because the last game I went to was a jersey day, jersey giveaway where I got the Storm Chaser replica, and the Cubs were in town, and Patrick Wisdom was down.
Oh, there you go.
And for the Storm Chasers, Ryan Yarbrough was down, who pitched yesterday for the Kansas City Royals. So it's just cool to see these guys on assignment just getting back to their true form.
The rehab assignments are great.
And then you also get to watch the next in line, at least in a really good farm system. I know, and this isn't a huge knock on the Storm Chasers at all. It's just what the hand you're dealt with the Royals organization. They're
right
not
now.
one of the best farm systems in baseball.
But even like a couple years ago, you had like Bobby Witt Jr. coming through, who's a high-end prospect.
They once had a really good farm system here. So you got to watch that, witness that in Omaha. Right now, I get to witness that with Memphis.
Yeah.
But I got to see Jordan Walker down. I got to see Mason Wynn, Lucan Baker, guys like that.
Yeah.
But then you look at other great farm systems, like Texas has a really good farm system right now. The Dodgers, believe it or not, have a great farm system.
Which is wild because they're awesome right now already.
We caca them for just buying every
they're doing it.
Deadline.
They're doing it well.
They always do it
on both ends.
And now, yes, you have that luxury because you have an owner that spends money, but you also have to deal with the luxury tax on top of it.
Well, you still have to run your organization well to have a good. The farm systems are, I think, the best indicator of how well an organization is run. That's why, like, Tampa is considered such a good organization because they always have a pipeline of prospects coming in because they don't pay anybody, right? They just like bring them up and then they sell them off once they're ready for a new contract to somebody else. But I remember a couple years ago, he didn't actually end up pitching because I was a little disappointed, but I still had a great time at the game. Was Clayton Kershaw was supposed to be down on a rehab assignment. And so I bought tickets specifically because I wanted to go see Clayton Kershaw pitch, and then they ended up scratching him and just sending him back to LA. But even going in there, being a little disappointed that Clayton Kershaw wasn't going to pitch, still had a hell of excitement. Still had a hell of a time. Yeah. It was. I mean, it's always a good time out at the ballpark.
Well, you were talking about a lot of great franchises, and that's what the Bulls were back in the 90s.
Yeah, absolutely.
Winning titles, and currently I've been watching The Last Dance for the first time. I've been taking a lot of heat for that.
I'm on my fourth time. Yep.
I know that comes as a major shock to you, Ravi, that people are giving me the sarcastic giver.
No.
More times than not.
How far are you into it now?
Take it.
This was 7 and 8 last night. We watched, so we've got 2 episodes left.
Out of 10?
Yep.
Giveth and taketh, right, Shane?
Would you so far would you go back and rewatch it?
Me?
Yeah.
No. I'm a one and done.
You're a one and done guy?
I'm a one and done with documentaries.
I like
even if I liked
stuff.
it.
Yeah.
Like cuz I have the tapes of the Cardinals World Series run in 2011. Watched it one time.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to go back and watch it. If I want to go watch a highlight, I'll pull it up on YouTube.
Like I'm totally different. I've got the box sets of the 04 and 07 Red Sox. So 04 is the ALCS through the World Series. I've probably watched not all of them, but there's certain games I've watched dozens of times. Like Game 4 of the ALCS where Ortiz walks it off. Game 5 where Ortiz walks it off.
Right. I just don't want to go back and watch a full game.
Yeah.
So like I'll go back and watch highlights of the game.
Yeah.
But I don't want to sit back through a 3-hour game of what I already know the outcome of.
See, when I've got nothing going on and I'm kind of like, even I'm working on my computer or whatever, I'll just throw it on in the background. Love it.
Now, see, I like going back through old film.
Yeah.
But I don't want to watch it for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So that's the only, I'm more for the convenience of, hey, skip ahead. Like, let's get to the good stuff.
The best for that, if you want that, is like when they redo the Super Bowls.
Yeah.
They show like the 30 minutes and then they just share them all in a row or whatever. I actually have a couple of the box sets. I like watching those.
Yeah. They do that on NFL Network sometimes too. And then what I would, and you probably won't do this because you don't like watching old games, but if you go on YouTube, there are full Bulls games where you can see like a full Michael Jordan in his prime. And those are phenomenal to watch.
I'm sure they are.
They're incredible.
I'm sure they're great.
Like
I won't do it, but I'm sure
they're awesome. So great. Like they did ESPN actually showed it because they like redigitized, they remastered the Game 6 against Utah in the finals. And that was watching that again was phenomenal.
Was that like 97?
It was 98. It was the last one.
98.
Yep.
Yep. I'm just a big highlight guy.
That's fair. So let's get to Scottie Pippen though.
Yeah. So the 94 season is where we kind of rested in episode 7.
Yeah.
Because episode 8, I don't think like is anything crazy.
There wasn't
Jordan came back. He started recording Space Jam as he tried to get back in full basketball form. And then they ended up winning the 95-96 championship, the first one of the second three-peat. So yes, we don't really need to get too much into that. But the point that we wanted to hit on early on was, hey, you had said this, Andrew, you may not like Scottie Pippen as much as the season goes on. You didn't say that, hey, he turns into a bad guy, and that you don't have a right to say that he was undervalued.
My point was more
not like his decisions.
You'll look at him differently. And whether you think he's still undervalued, whatever, that's totally up to you. But I think if you stack the things up that we learned in the documentary, I think it's hard to look at him the same way.
See, the parts that happened earlier don't matter to me. This is the only piece.
This is a bad.
So I don't even think buildup was needed on Scottie Pippen.
Yeah.
Because I think everything he did prior to this was A-okay. Because you see it all the time. And, the reason I bring that up too.
Even with the surgery thing?
So more with the timing of it, I didn't really care about because he's just using his leverage.
I don't know.
I bring this up too because of what I heard yesterday Saquon Barkley say when he wasn't franchise tagged. He's like, I could easily right now say, go kick rocks team, go kick rocks players, go kick rocks Giants organization. I'm holding out because you're not going to treat me the way that I feel like I'm valued. Players are still using that leverage today. So it's not like an uncommon tool or card to play. So that's why I don't find an issue with that at all.
I disagree heavy there because I think there's a difference between sitting out to get what you want in terms of a contract and choosing not to be healthy so that you can come back if the contract gets worked out. Because even if they, best case scenario, right? He waits till October to get this surgery. If they had said, hey, let's say they're 10 games in, because they started that season, 8-9, or 9-9, not good at all. If they're 18 games in and they're like, Scotty, we screwed up. We realize how valuable you are. Here's your money.
They weren't going to say that.
No, but even if they did, he couldn't have played. That's the problem with doing it the way he did it.
But they weren't going to say that, so he didn't have to worry about that.
But he didn't know that. If he's using it as leverage.
He knew that, though, because.
Well, so that's the difference between leverage and vengeance. If it's leverage,
of the two, though.
If there's leverage, you're doing it to try and accomplish a goal.
There's a combination. So,
but if you know you can't accomplish the goal, then it's vengeance.
Because this could help. Yeah. Answer this for me. When was he trying to renegotiate a deal? When did he want to do that? Was it in the summer?
I think it was for a couple years prior.
Okay, so he knew for a long time that he's been trying to do this.
But he's been playing the whole time.
Right.
So if he's doing a sitting out thing, he hasn't sat out yet.
There's vengeance there for sure.
Yes.
There's 100% vengeance. But also when you sit out, just to sit out, there's vengeance toward an organization. Whether you look at it as leverage and vengeance, yes, you could come back at any time and play if you got your contract.
That's the big problem for me.
So there's that.
Yeah.
There's that piece of it for sure.
Yeah.
But you see players, the point is you see players doing it all the time.
Not with the surgery, though. That's the big issue.
But with the fact of not getting paid, feeling undervalued, and using that as motivation to make your move is essentially what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
Regardless, I don't have a problem with that. I really don't.
For the record, I do.
The part I have a problem with is Scotty quitting on his team.
Yeah.
In 94.
Which I don't think these are that much different. To be clear, I don't think 94 and 97 are that much different. I think there's a difference
of quitting on your team and quitting on the organization. Because he quit in the moment.
That's
on
bad.
His team, on his boys.
So if you don't know
he could never recover from that.
If you don't know what we're talking about, Scotty refused to check into an Eastern Conference final game because Phil drew up the final play for Tony Kukoc instead, who had hit several game winners on that play that year.
That's bad.
It's horrifying.
You can't recover from that chemistry with the team. At least with the point of the surgery, even though players were like, hey, this sucks that you did this to us, they could probably forgive him for it because the motive wasn't to hurt the team. It was to hurt Jerry Krause.
But the result was still hurting the team.
It was. The result was there, but you can still forgive that act.
It's hard.
This one is a lot harder to forgive. Brian Edwards up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Now, Vegas insider, senior handicapper, and fan of the cold Budweiser bottles, Brian Edwards.
It's got to be touchdown, touchdown, touchdown.
Brian Edwards.
I don't really love it.
Brian Edwards.
Were they using the cream cheese to butter the bagel?
Brian Edwards.
I'm going with the cowgirl.
Here is Brian Edwards.
All right, that time again to where we get to talk a little gambling on the show with Brian Edwards, MajorWager.com and BrianEdwardsSports.com, at Vegas B Edwards on Twitter. B, good morning. Thanks for joining us, man.
Good morning, gentlemen. What's happening?
Hey, it's a good day because I have an outstanding bet right now on the Open Championship. I have a 5-leg parlay going, as you could have probably guessed. And it's a top 40 on down to top 5. So it's fun because at least it gives me 2 days for this parlay to last.
Right.
The
Hopefully
likelihood
4
of it
days.
hitting, right? The likelihood of it hitting is probably like me winning the Powerball because I don't live in California.
Ryan, do we need to have like a parlay intervention with my guy here?
No.
Because listen, I'm not saying he can't place the bet.
I'm not showing up to this therapy.
The parlays are a little out of hand, I think.
Well, as long as he's only putting like $5 to $10, then we probably don't have a problem. If he's dropping $100 10-team parlays, then we got a problem.
Thank you, B. I knew I liked you. How are you doing today? How was UFC for you last weekend? How did pan out?
I did not have much going, and I lost Terrence McKinney and the under, and so then I chased with a couple of it did not go well, but I wasn't I wasn't aggressive. I wasn't even planning on betting anything but Terrence McKinney. But then when I lost that, I chased with a couple, and I was due a bad UFC card, and I got it. But I didn't give back what I made in Jacksonville or on UFC 290. That's for sure.
And then looking ahead to UFC quickly here, because I want to get into some college football over-unders and NFL over-unders, but
let's do that. Let's do that because I'm still working on my.
You're still working on your London
yes.
blaze.
Yes, I am.
I am. See.
You gave me 6 football teams, so I've been preparing for 6 football teams.
If B's still working though on UFC, he's struggling. He's going back and forth of do we play the main card? Do we not? Okay, let's start with college football because we've been doing our schedule breakdown, and we'll kick it off with Purdue here, B. So we talked to Tom Dienhart today. They have a lot of new things going on at Purdue: new head coach, new OC, new quarterback. They're given an over/under at 5.5 with plus odds on the over. Which are you leaning to last year's Big Ten championship West? What's the word?
Champions.
No, not because they didn't.
I mean, they won the Big Ten West. Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking more of like the representative. That's the word I'm looking for.
There you go. Yeah, well, they're not going to be repping the West this year, I don't believe. I initially marked them 2-5 with 5 swing games. I mean, they can win at Virginia Tech because I just don't think Vatech's very good. I got Syracuse at home. I mean, those are 2 non-con games that are kind of coin flips. Illinois at home's kind of a coin flip. Minnesota at home's kind of a coin flip. They certainly can win at Northwestern. We'll see, but I would probably say, since I have 5 swing games, I mean, I probably think they go, 3-2 in those, but the unders being heavily juiced. So I'm a pass. But look, Hudson Card should be pretty good. 11-2 TDI and T ratio, only 5 career starts, but he's played a little bit. He should be pretty good, but they lost so much. Top 2 receivers, etc. I think it's going to be a transition, rebuilding year. And we'll see what Ryan Walters is made of. He was a unbelievable DC at Illinois last year.
Brian, a team that's not really in transition and a lot is expected out of this year is Michigan. How do you deal with teams like Michigan where you expect them to be good, but obviously Vegas does as well? Is there any value to be found there?
Yeah, the over-under 10.5 is a pass for me. Circa's got them at plus 170 to win the Big Ten. So I initially marked them 8-0 with 4 swing games, but I think they'll win one of those swing games at Minnesota. I'm going to say they lose at Penn State. They are a 2.5-point favorite in the games of the year there. I'm going to say they win at Maryland, which was initially marked a swing game along with Minnesota and Penn State. And then so I've got them 10-1 going into the Ohio State game, which is a coin flip game. So, yeah, I think 10.5 is a good line for their win total. But, Michigan should be very strong. 15 starters back. They've got depth in the backfield. They've got their top, 5 tacklers back from a defense that gave up only 16.1 points per game. So Michigan's going to be really good, but I don't really see any value in betting a preseason bet.
Now, another Big Ten West team that seems to be getting a lot of love in a head coach's first season is Wisconsin. And this one, we'll get into the schedule breakdown on the show next week with this matchup with Nebraska, but 8.5 be at minus 130 odds seems pretty how can I put this? It leaves an uneasy feeling for me, even though they are given such great odds for getting over that hump, getting to that 9-win range. I just don't know in year one of a head coach and some turnover if that can actually be something that we see.
I do like it over. I am going over 8.5. They lost 3 one-possession games last year. The schedule works. They do not have to play Penn State. They do not have to play Michigan, and they get Ohio State at home. They're 10-point underdog in the games of the year there. But I mean, I see 9 wins, and I see the 3 swing games being Ohio State at home, at Illinois, and at Minnesota. So, I think they get to at least 9. I think they're going to win the West. Unless Luke Altmaier just has a incredible year, or Iowa's offense somehow finds a pulse for the first time in years, because I think Iowa's defense will be really good. But I think Wisconsin wins the West, and I think they get to at least 9, and I'm actually thinking they're probably a 10-win team. Obviously, I think Fickle was a Grand Slam hire, and I think Tanner Mordecai, 24 career starts, 72-22 career TDI-NT ratio. I think he'll be an upgrade over my quarterback, Graham Mertz.
B, I want to switch over to the NFL with you now. Speaking of our teams, my 49ers are listed at 10.5 for their over-under number. A lot of uncertainty at the quarterback spot, even though it does seem like they are expecting Brock Purdy to be healthy and play there. As we've seen with the 49ers in the past, it's probably going to be another multi-QB season. How do you tackle a team that has shown an ability to overcome those quarterback injuries, but there is still some uncertainty at the position with that type of number?
Yeah, so FanDuel -160 to win the NFC West, 10.5 over is -142. So I marked them 10-4 with 3 swing games, being at Pittsburgh, at Cleveland, and Cincinnati at home. I think they get at least one of those, so I lean over. But with the -142 juice, I might play it over, but I gotta wait till mid-late August and feel comfortable about wherever Brock Purdy is or isn't with his health. And they got a hell of a defense. They've got an outstanding team, and who knows how the Philadelphia game goes last year if not for the Purdy injury. And I'd like to know where Trey Lance is health-wise as well. And we're weeks away, if not a good month or so, from knowing that. But I would lean Niners, but I'm not playing it quite yet.
B, I brought this up on the show.
Or lean over is what I meant to say. Sorry to cut you off.
No worries. I brought this up on the show a couple of days ago about how it seems like Vegas just really doesn't know how a lot of these divisions will play out, because everybody is given such high win totals. If you really look up and down the list, there's only a few that rest like 6.5 and below, which makes sense when you look at the rest of the divisions, but then those teams tend to fall in the same division. I look at the NFC North and the Bears, and I'm like 7.5. After being the worst team in football last year, you think they're winning 8 games?
I don't, but I'm not playing the under because I think they've got a good chance to. I think they're probably going to finish 7-10. I mean, the schedule we never know how a schedule can look good in August and end up not being that way. But I mean, there's just so many winnable games on their schedule to me. I mean, they've got Arizona at home. They've got Carolina at home. They've got Las Vegas at home. They're at Washington, albeit on a short week, but that's a winnable game. Atlanta at home. I think they can beat Green Bay at home. They can beat Denver at home. So I think the Bears will be improved. I mean, not enough for me to go over 7.5, but I'm thinking they maybe go 7-10. I think Fields will be even more improved, and they made some pretty good offseason moves. Not great moves, but enough to be improved. I mean, because look, they went 1-6 in one possession games last year, so there's bound to be some positive. What's the opposite of regression? Help me out there.
Progression.
Progression. Yes, thank you. God, I'm dumb this morning.
It's all right. I couldn't think of representative earlier, so words are just hard today in this segment. Quickly here, before we let you go, B, what about the Jets and Aaron Rodgers' first year?
Okay, so their win total is 9.5, and I think they probably go 10-7. But I mean, obviously, I'm not that confident over the 9.5. I don't really like Saleh as their coach, especially the way he mismanaged. I had Detroit when they were playing at the Jets last year, and the way he mismanaged that clock was beautiful for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it certainly stuck in my mind. This guy has no idea what he's doing with clock management.
So you would take the under?
Nope, it's a pass. I've been a fence sitter except for the Wisconsin. I like Wisconsin to go.
All right. Well, maybe you can convince me. Maybe I'll reassess the schedule now that you and Ravi and DB all kind of like the over. I'm not sold on the first year head coach. Here we go. Thanks, B.
All right, guys. Enjoyed it. Thanks.
Sports Six Pack up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Time now for the Sports Six Pack on Coffee and Cream with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning. Presented by Zipline Brewing Company, makers of Dear Old Nebraska Brew, the official beer of Nebraska alumni.
Welcome back, Sports Six Pack time, and the six pack that I want to talk about is Acres Ale. Brewed with Nebraska-grown corn, Acres Ale is crisp and clean with a light, refreshing flavor, just as customers associate the Acres name with quality in the field. Zipline wants them to look for Acres Ale when it's time to wind down and know they're getting a great American brewed beer with them in mind. Again, it's crisp, it's light, it's refreshing, it's 4%. Drank a lot of them, have some fun. It's Acres Ale. And we're about to have some fun with the Sports Six Pack. Shane, let's do it.
Question number 1.
Brady and Lincoln. Andrew,
Hi, Brady.
Andrew, do you regret not getting Victor yesterday for an open pick? Oh, wait, that's not the question.
Let's see. Hold on, Shane. Before we even actually do the real questions, let's look up the scoreboard.
Scoreboard.
I don't even know if Victor's doing
I don't either.
I don't even know if he's teed off.
I haven't looked at it.
Jordan Spieth is 2 under.
Okay.
Cantley is 1 under. Scheffler is 1 under. And these are final scores that I'm reading here. I'm looking to see if anybody else is at the top. I don't see Schauffele. Did anybody have him?
I don't think so.
Shane, did you have Schauffele?
Had Rahm. He hasn't teed off yet.
I think he had Schauffele, who's
And
even through
Spieth.
17.
I had Jordan, Rahm, and Victor.
Oh, you had Spieth?
You had Hovland. I'm sorry.
So Spieth's doing good.
Yeah.
And maybe it was my buddy yesterday I was talking to that likes Schauffele. Okay, I don't think Hovland has teed off yet. He is not. 8:48 a.m. So he's about to tee off.
Yeah, or recently has, and we haven't
and we just haven't seen the
updated
scores yet. Okay, Shane. No, I don't regret it yet.
That's a great question by
Keyword
Brady.
there is yet. What's Brady's second question?
What's the most fun place Shohei Ohtani could end up at the trade deadline?
Good question, because we'll get into this later on in the show. So, Brady, appreciate that question. The most fun. So, this is not a where we think, Ravi. This is a this would be fun.
Yeah, in our ideal world. And for me, it's got to be somebody we consider a contender, right? Because that's the one stage we haven't seen Shohei Ohtani in yet is high stakes Major League Baseball games, right? The closest thing we've come is the World Baseball Classic earlier this year.
Hey, don't look now. Cardinals are 10 games back, by the way. Not in last place in the Central anymore.
Who? So I look at a couple places. I think the most fun for me, and this is kind of a wild card, would be the Orioles. Because they're not a perennial contender anyway. This maybe is kind of, I don't know. They've got a lot of young talent, so maybe they're good for a while, but you never really know with these teams. They've obviously put it together this year, tied for first in the AL East.
That would be fun. I would love to see.
I think Shohei at Camden, because that place when they're good loves their baseball team. And getting Shohei there would be a jolt of energy they haven't had in years.
I feel like most franchises are like that, unless you are a real dedicated.
That's fair. There's some places
fan.
though that like the floor and ceiling are different, and I feel like since Baltimore has struggled for so long, it just takes it to another level. I think it'd be a lot of fun to see Shohei in Baltimore, even though the chances of him actually re-signing there are basically zero. That would be a lot of fun for me.
I think a fun team to watch Shohei play on. I was between two, and I'm going to narrow it down because I'm not going to give two.
Okay.
I think I'll go with the Diamondbacks.
Oh, okay.
Really young team.
Okay.
Also not a perennial contender, as you were saying with the Orioles.
Yeah.
Now they have won in this century.
Barely.
Yep. But they have won.
Yep.
But what I really like about the Diamondbacks, is they don't have a lineup on paper that screams, hey, like we are the ish.
But does it scream Shohei?
And I think it does. Because if you can add him into that rotation with Zach Gallen, who was the all-star starter.
Yep.
Merrill Kelly's had a really good year too.
Yeah.
Now you have 3 really solid pitchers.
And in the playoffs, that's about what you need.
Right.
Like you can get away with 3 in the playoffs.
You add him into a lineup with Ketel Marte, who's rebounded.
Yeah.
Corbin Carroll, who's one of the best young studs in baseball. Christian Walker's bat has come alive. Then you put Shohei Ohtani there too?
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a team that would be fun to root for. I mean, I think the Diamondbacks just themselves are fun to root for
anyway, yeah.
So why not have that be a place that Shohei Ohtani ends up?
Who was your second place, just out of curiosity?
The second team I was going to choose would be the Blue Jays. And the reason for that is because I think they have a lineup.
That lineup would be
unbelievable.
Speaking of incredible lineups, which the Rangers would have been.
Yeah,
that was my second pick.
So that is a team that I think I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait.
You're late? You're late? Okay.
I'm going to make you wait till 9:45.
A little tease.
Question number 2.
Nick in Omaha. So what Ravi is arguing is the build-up to why Scottie Pippen was hard to like in those years, and Andrew is arguing one thing is worse than the other question. Now, is what we're settling on, LOL, question. Because I'm more on.
Can you reread this question?
Because it's, I mean, there's like 4 or 5. That's why I wanted to have the stops in there.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure you knew that there's like 4. Like Andrew's arguing one thing worse than the other.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Is what we're settling on? LOL.
Is this what we're settling on? Okay.
Is that what we're settling on? LOL.
Okay.
Because I'm more on Ravi's side. So there's a couple questions in there.
Okay. So I think I know what's being asked.
Okay.
So what's being asked is, you're saying one thing, I'm saying another. I'm saying one thing's worse than the other. You're saying, no, this is build up to just being a bad thing.
Yes, I think it is a pattern of behavior that should change the way you look at Scottie Pippen. Whether you still choose to like him or not, which I tend to. I mean, it sounds like I don't like Scottie Pippen, and I do.
No, but you can be critical on somebody's behavior.
Yes, I think there is a pattern of questionable to flat out selfish behavior from Scottie Pippen that makes management's stance on him a little more understandable.
And now I can understand the vengeance side of things that Ravi brought up earlier in this hour. I can really understand that because the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, okay, things are a little bit different than the point that was being that it was being compared to with Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
But I still ride with my guns of one's true intentions was to affect the owners and the GM. Like that was the goal behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it still had residual effect on the team, it wasn't meant to hurt the team. It was really meant to just say, hey, owners, this is why players have a voice.
Can I make the argument?
Hold on. And let me finish my point and then make your argument. Versus the other was hurting just the team. He did that out of selfishness because he wasn't getting the basketball and he was pouty and decided, hey, I'm not going to do it. And the fact that they won that game.
I say Kukoc hit the shot, by the way.
The fact that they won that game made the situation even worse.
Yeah.
Because it's like, hey, Phil Jackson was right.
Phil was right.
And you completely destroyed your entire relationship with the team. Go ahead.
Can I make the argument that the electing not to get the surgery is worse because it was premeditated? You could make the argument that the Knicks thing was emotional in the moment. A lot of people make bad decisions in those scenarios. The surgery, he had plenty of time to think about it. He knew he needed the surgery. Even if he say he gets it in July instead of in June or in August. Okay.
Because he could have played without getting the surgery. Because we saw him play without getting the surgery. So I'm going to say no to that because of that reason.
Okay.
I know where your brain was going there.
The premeditated thing is hard for me because it's something he had time to think about.
But he got into his own feelings in that game.
Sure, yeah.
His feelings got hurt.
They're both horrible. I mean, this is the thing I was waiting for you to see. So obviously I don't think highly of it.
Right.
But I was just curious if that changed your thought at all.
Right. All in all, I agree with you in saying that his behavior is not something to like and that it seemed as though society as a whole
gave him a pass.
Nice to him.
Gave him a pass. Because there's a pattern of behavior here.
Yeah.
That was a great question from Nick in Omaha. I got to drink a lot during that response.
I had to drink a lot during the question asked.
To get to understand the question.
Question number 3.
How competitive is Nebraska's non-con schedule in your eyes, and do you think this is finally a proper slate of games to push the Huskers to the max before Big Ten play?
I think it's very competitive. I think what Fred Hoiberg did was really well done. Plus, he added in my boys from Lindenwood. They'll be coming to Lincoln to play. So I'll be attending that game. And on top of that, Robbie, because of my Lindenwood ties, my buddy who coaches at Cal State Fullerton will also be playing in Lincoln, and I will be attending that game. So just out of pure love of the schedule that he hit two of the teams that I like to watch and follow along with, I'm giving Fred Hoiberg all the credit here. I'm giving him a high five, an air dap, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, so I think they were wise not to overreach in the non-conference schedule because there's some unknowns in terms of what they're going to have coming back. Obviously, Derek Walker, Sam Grissel not being there anymore. They were the kind of the two anchors of that team last year. So I think it was wise to ease themselves into Big Ten play. Now, they're going to have a jump in competition, which is always the balance that you're trying to strike. But if you look at the way it sets up, they start off fairly easy for their first 4 or 5 games. They go Power 5 against Oregon State, but that's not a juggernaut.
Although Oregon State, though, recently was featured
they're
deep
better
into the tournament.
For sure. Duquesne's and Cal State Fullerton after that, and then they go Creighton, Kansas State before.
Those two games right there.
Those are the tests.
Are good build-up games.
Yes.
And then you have a little bit of a break with North Dakota.
Yes. So
it was like, hey, we're going to dip our toes deep into the water, and now we're going to go back to the shore a little bit.
Yes.
And I actually like the layout there.
I do too.
Because a lot of times, especially in Creighton's case, you're playing the best teams all the way up until the end, and then you keep playing the best teams in your conference. And sometimes it's nice to say, hey, let's take a breath and go into Big Ten conference play.
So I kind of like how they did. They've got 4 kind of warm-ups. They test themselves with Oregon State, couple more easier non-Power 5 opponents, and then they go Creighton, Kansas State, and then they give themselves a little confidence boost heading into Big Ten play. I think they set it up well for the roster and the team they're likely to bring in next season.
Question number 4.
You're in the driveway, ready to hit the game-winning shot. You count down from 3, release the ball, and this is where the video slows in suspense. What song is playing underneath the video as the ball travels through the basket?
Hey, what's up, hello? That's
Never.
Ravi's.
Never. Interesting question.
What song is playing underneath the slow motion video?
Can I tell you mine?
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
It would probably be Phil Collins, Missed Again, because I would probably totally dismiss it.
So the first thought that popped into my mind was Dream On by Aerosmith. There was this at the like 99, 2000, ESPN put out a video called The Images of Our Century. And it's basically just like 6 minutes of the most iconic video clips of basically the entire 20th century. And Dream On is the soundtrack to that video.
Dream On.
Yes, it's sick. It's incredible. And it's like they fade out the music and sometimes put the call in, like the Doug Flutie Hail Marys in there, and it's like Flutie did it, and then it's like Dream On. It's incredible, right? So that's the first song that came to my mind.
Okay, the song I would choose, and hear me out here, is My Heart Will Go On. Okay? And the reason for it is you take the instrumental part of like the build up with the orchestra as the ball's going in, and then right when it hits, it goes, and then you get like fist bumps everywhere.
You've just seen too many of those on Twitter where they put the My Heart Will Go. Have you seen those?
No.
Oh, so there's this like entire Twitter phenomenon where people will put My Heart Will Go On behind iconic sports moments.
No way.
I swear to you. Just look up. I swear to you. And it's incredible. They do it with movies too, at like climactic movie scenes.
Well, okay, so you know how that makes me unoriginal now. I gotta change my choice now.
That's not even my favorite Celine Dion song.
Well, that's okay. That's not what we're asking.
No, yeah, there's this. Look it up. There's this whole Twitter thing.
Okay. Okay. So if it's not that,
yeah,
it'd be the Final Countdown.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm surprised none of us chose what is
one shining
the one shining moment.
That would be an easy one.
Yeah, what? It's too easy.
No, is that really a thing on Twitter?
Yeah, I swear. During the break, look it up.
Okay.
It's a whole thing.
I feel bad that I brought that up now.
No,
that was like a great
It is a great idea. It just already exists.
Instead of one shining moment,
that's why
you mentioned Nelly earlier. I would probably choose number one.
One shining moment?
No, I said instead of one shining
Oh.
moment. Since you mentioned Nelly earlier, I would probably choose. I'm number one.
Incredible. Nelly has good sports songs. He does.
Question number 5.
I like that question.
That was a good question. Yeah.
Josie and Lincoln, if there's one thing you could upgrade to improve the fan experience at Memorial Stadium, it would be what?
It would be stadium seating behind the end zone.
Oh, that's not where I was going to go.
So not like in the seats, but literally field level.
Oh,
where the tunnel walk is.
Yeah.
Because the games that I've covered on the sidelines, I feel so bad for the people that are behind that little bit of fencing and have an obstructed view because media members tend to stand in your way.
Jerks.
Or like the way, like just the window you're given.
Yeah.
From height. It doesn't seem all that great, and you have to stand back there. There's nowhere to sit. Like if I could really upgrade Memorial Stadium without having to do a ton of damage, it would be by putting in proper stadium seating there, whether it's 2 rows or 3 rows of seating just right there so that people can buy those seats and sit field level and feel like you're a part of the game, but you're not like outcast. Because it's almost as if, do you remember when COVID was a thing in baseball and they shut down ballparks, so people were playing in empty ballparks, and then, or was it COVID or was it before with the Orioles? Was it a lockout thing?
Oh,
I can't remember, but fans were outside the gates at Camden Yards, like trying to watch the games. What was that for?
That was because there was like an incident, I think, and they kicked everybody out, and so they resumed the game with no fans.
Maybe that's what it was, and they were out. Like that's what it reminds me of. You're like not actually there. Even though you are, because you have the best seats in the house, because you get to high five the players as they come down the tunnel. That would be the thing for me, trying to make a game experience field level right there, like where the tunnel walk is.
Field level seating, that's a good idea. So I was going to say seating too, but I was just going to say the general seating, make them more comfortable, have actual seats in there, because the benches are really tough on your buns for 3 hours or 4 hours or however long you're there.
Buns. You said buns.
I did say buns. On your patoot. That's the roughest part of the experience for me, is hard on your back, hard on your butt. Like it's just a difficult way to sit for 3-4 hours and enjoy a game. If they could make the seating more comfortable in general, I get that's a huge investment and undertaking, but that would be the best thing to improve the overall experience.
Question number 6.
I love when he laughs at the burp.
If you had won the Powerball, how would you spend your winnings? How much was it?
It was over $1 billion, but you probably took home roughly 600.
Yeah.
Because can't you take that in one lump sum?
Yeah.
And if you don't take it in one lump sum, do you still get $600 million over time, or do you get closer to the $1 billion mark?
I think you end up with a little bit. I'm trying to remember. I think you end up with a little bit more because it gets taxed differently.
Right.
But because you can't invest that huge sum, you often would end up with less money.
Right.
If you invest it well, you're better off taking the lump sum.
Right.
Can I tell you what I would buy first?
Yeah, absolutely.
You said it was $600 million.
About that would have been your net.
One lump sum, and you would just have it.
Yep.
I'd probably buy Zipline.
Good for you.
Just buying the brewery.
Just buying the brewery. I mean, then I could just drink as much as I want.
Or you could just keep buying
beer.
Or
you could just buy it. I was like, you'll never run out of money with $600 million buying beer.
It'd be a great investment. These guys, are they going to keep their jobs?
But
like Shane,
are you
going to be a bad person?
No, they would definitely keep their jobs.
You better not.
Somebody's got to make the beer that he wants to make.
They're great out there. It would be a great investment.
Would be a good investment. Okay, I was talking about this with my brother yesterday.
Okay.
How cool would it be to build a little league complex, a baseball complex?
Yeah.
I want it to be outdoors.
Yeah.
We'll find a good location that people can travel to, but I would want to do it where I live. So whether it's in Omaha or St. Louis, I would build a little league complex of 4 stadiums that replicate Major League Baseball stadium.
Oh, that's cool.
So the dimensions will be like
Little League dimensions.
220 down the left field line, but there's a green monster there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or it's like 190 with the green monster, but it looks just like Fenway.
Just scaled down.
Scaled down.
Okay.
Same thing with like Wrigley. I would have to have a Busch Stadium because that's my team. And then the last ballpark, maybe like in Arizona with the pool.
That's a cool one. That's
maybe a cool one. The Angels because of the rocks in center field.
You should do an old polo ground where it's
Which would be cool.
still just like 550 to center for the kids.
Or maybe do a field like if it is here in Nebraska, have a cornfield that represents Field of Dreams.
Yeah, that would be cool.
So
yeah.
I would create a little league complex though, where people could travel, and then I'd build a resort on it. So
nice.
I'd have 4 or 5 hotels there that people stay at and then just play.
Yeah, I wouldn't do any of that. I would. So I'm pretty simple in the things that I like. Like I would buy a really nice house. I would buy a couple cars that I really like. I've been feeling Range Rovers recently, so I'd probably buy a couple Range Rovers. I would do a lot of things to make my life easier. Like I would hire a chef probably. I would hire a driver. I would, aside from that, probably my big expenditures would be.
Could I come drive for you?
I haven't seen you drive before, but I'd let you try out. I'd let you audition.
Okay.
My big expenditures would be suits and shoes, which I couldn't spend $600 million on. But
thank goodness.
I would buy a really nice house. I'd buy some Range Rovers and then suits and shoes.
Yeah, another cool idea would be like just building a cul-de-sac for like my whole family.
Yes, yeah. So I would maybe do that. I would maybe like with my best friends and stuff and my family, I'd kind of build our own little neighborhood. But yeah, mine is more like lifestyle stuff. There's not a lot of like big purchases that I would want to make. It's just like I would make a lifestyle that I like.
515 Dave says they have replica MLB fields for slow pitch softball. He thinks it's called Big League Dreams, and he thinks it's in Vegas, Texas, and Arizona.
Oh, nice.
But I said the biggest moneymaker is the resort idea.
Yeah.
At the ballparks.
There you go.
Surrounding the fields. And then Amazing Daniel said he would just straight up disappear. Like 3 years from now, people would be like, wasn't there some guy named Amazing Daniel? What happened to that guy? That's a classic Amazing Daniel.
It is. It really is.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk to Jessica Brabec, tournament director of the Pinnacle Bank Championship. She's next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back. Coffee and Cream in the morning on ESPN Radio here in Omaha, on KFOR in Lincoln, live on Twitter, live on YouTube. I love the beat drop there. Ravi, Lulla.
You always wait for it.
I know. I need to do it better. I'm going to time it perfectly eventually. Sometime I'll time it just right, and it'll be smooth. It'll be really, really smooth, like this transition to Jessica Brabec right now, tournament director over at the Pinnacle Bank Championship. The Pinnacle Bank Championship Twitter page at PinBank Golf. Jessica, good morning.
Good morning. I thought it was a great transition.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. See, now you can come on anytime if you keep hyping me up.
All right, I can do that. We can do that.
So the event takes place at Indian Creek August 11th through the 14th. That's the Pinnacle Bank Championship window. It's a Thursday through a Sunday. Jessica, what makes this tournament different from the rest that you've been in charge of? What should people expect this year that they haven't seen or gotten in the past?
Sure. So believe it or not, we are going into the 7th year of the Pinnacle Bank Championship presented by Aetna at the club at Indian Creek. You'll notice that we do advertise that our event is a week long, August 7th through the 13th, because we have pro-ams and a practice round earlier in the week. So like you mentioned, tournament play is going to start on Thursday. So those of you that aren't familiar with how the Corn Ferry Tour works, we're going to have 156 professional golfers play on Thursday and Friday, and then make the cut to come out Saturday and Sunday. So I would say, the fun things about coming or how our event's going to look a little different, you don't have to be a golf fan to come out and have a good time. It's great people watching. Saturday is our RSM Youth Day. We have our putting challenge for the kiddos. We'll have some collegiate athletes that you can get autographs from. And it's an overall great time if you want to skip the office on Thursday and Friday.
Jessica, so you mentioned don't even have to be a golf fan. You've also got an awesome concert series going on this year. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So this will be the second year for our Barnado Live and Loud concert series on Friday and Saturday evenings. So if you go to their website, at Barnado's site, you can purchase tickets to the concert. So we have Kit Moore, Red Clay Strays, and then Lanco and Chris Jansen on Saturday evening.
Jessica, so last year was a lot different because it was the final round where players got their PGA Tour cards, and it was this massive event, and the Golf Channel was out. There were extra officials out for it too. But this year, the schedule has completely changed to where the Corn Ferry Tour final stop isn't here in Omaha. So what does that have to do with the other changes that come with the event? Whether it's parking for fans, whether it's a variety of different places on the course to sit and enjoy, things like that, because it's not the final stop anymore.
So to be honest with you, I think some people may not really realize the difference between last year to this year. We still are going to be the same great event. We still have wonderful hospitality areas out on the golf course. If you want to sponsor and purchase a hospitality package, or we have great general public amenities such as our Patron Zone down on 17 with our Hurrdat Harbor, which is a lot of fun. And then we have our KPMG Fan Zone on the 9th green, and just some great ways for you to watch golf. Parking is at Metro Community College Elkhorn campus, and it's a 5-minute shuttle ride to our main gate, so that doesn't take you long at all. But from a perspective of looking at how tournament play will be a little bit different, we still are going to have a great field. So the Corn Ferry Tour no longer has a regular season finale. So instead, they are going to hand out cards at the very end of the season instead of before the end, like they did at our event last year. But that does mean that we have some exemptions. So if you've been following the Pinnacle Bank Championship presented by Aetna at all, you'll realize that Luke Kluver earned an exemption into our event a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, and then earlier this week, Nate Vance did. So we have a lot of local guys that are going to be playing. There's actually going to be 6 Nebraskans playing. So those two. And then we have, crowd favorites is Scott Gucheski and Brandon Crick. Brandon's been having a really good year. Gucheski's getting close to getting back to that PGA Tour card. And then we also have given exemptions to Noah Hoffman, who's from McCook, and then to Carson Shockey, a local Omaha kid. So there's going to be a lot of local talent, which is going to be fun. So there's going to be some really big crowds on Thursday and Friday you don't want to miss.
So whether you're a golf fan or not, like we've been saying, at least there's an opportunity to support all of your neighbors out there playing.
Yes.
You're the local guys, as you said. Aside from that, though, because you had mentioned that there's not a final stop anymore, and I'm kind of curious now, and I don't know how much you can speak to this, and feel free to just pass if you want. But how much has the Live merger affected how the Corn Ferry Tour operates?
Sure. So, we were the regular season finale for 2 years in 2021 and 22, and it was awesome. Seeing the emotion, the guys earning their PGA Tour card, but also just trying to stay on the Corn Ferry Tour and keeping enough points to be able to make it for next year and not have to go to Q school. That was very emotional. So with the change in the PGA Tour schedule due to Live, the PGA Tour changed their schedule, which meant that the Corn Ferry Tour decided to change their schedule starting in 2023. So what they did was they took away the regular season finale, and then they made a 4-week playoff series instead of a 3-week playoff series. So after the 4-week playoff series that they have this year, then 30 guys will get their PGA Tour cards. And then something that has actually been in the works for probably 3 or 4 years now is you're going to see a lot of PGA Tour U. So that PGA Tour University, what they did was they have a ranking for those collegiate athletes. Starting their junior year, they can accumulate points, and then the top 5 earn spots into Korn Ferry Tour events. So there have actually been a couple of guys already win tournaments this year that are straight out of college.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Jessica, I'm going to go back to something you said a minute ago. When you said Patron Zone, my ears perked up a little bit.
Sure.
What does the Patron Zone have to offer, and how can I get there?
I'm assuming it's tequila.
It is. You're very quick.
Hey, not just a hat rack, my friend.
So we've rebranded. It was Grey Goose Public Dining. Patron Zone has a little bit better ring to it. It's a general public air-conditioned concession stand that Cutchall manages. They have a great menu lineup of food and beverage that you can go in and purchase, but it's right along on our 17 par 3. So if you're not familiar with the golf course on 17, it's a par 3. So that means that the pros are going to hit, and then they're going to walk right in front of you where you're at on the Patron Zone, sitting out on that patio watching golf, and then they're going to go up to the green and they're going to chip in or putt in. And so then that's going to be just a great spot to watch golf. I know that Hurrdat Sports has a promotion going on down there. If you make a post through their QR code, then you can get a ride on the boat that will be out there. So there's actually a pontoon boat that's in the water. The
Heck yeah.
Okay.
Yes. It's
Let's
going to be
go.
a good time. So it's a very unique way to watch golf. Yes.
Now, okay, so here I'll get you out of here on this, Jessica, because I have a couple of buddies that caught a Korn Ferry Tour event in Wichita. And what they really enjoyed about the event most, and it was their first time attending one of them, was the fact that they could interact with the golfers, and it was different than if you were interacting with like those on the PGA Tour. Because like, not to say that there's like any difference in rank, but there's just like higher stakes, right? And guys are more locked in on the tour and have a little more fun on the Korn Ferry Tour. At least that's from my experience too. But he said one of the best pieces of advice he got from Kyle Jones, just having a conversation with him, because he was hitting out of the sand and he put one right on the green. He goes, "Kyle, how do I improve my sand shot?" And Kyle took the time to walk over to him and tell him it's just like hitting out of the rough. Like, took the time and acknowledged that question. And I just think that's what separates this level of golf from the rest.
Yes. I think you summed it up beautifully. You know, the Korn Ferry Tour guys, some of them are new to the tour and they're just starting their careers. Some of them have been here a while. You know, David Skins is a great champion for the Pinnacle Bank Championship. He won here in 2021 and 2018. And honestly, our hope is we never see those champions again because they're doing bigger and better things. You know, Sam Ryder won our inaugural year. But all of the guys that play understand the importance that the crowds and the spectators and the sponsors and the volunteers especially bring to the event. You know, we are lucky. We have some people that...
Are you still with us?
Oh, I am. Yep.
The bed music. That's our bed music that we have to wrap it up.
That's what I wasn't sure. So I was just going to say, so we have some player housing needs if anyone would like, but we always have volunteer opportunities to have that interaction with the golfer.
Awesome. Well, Jessica, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much. And we'll see you again very soon in August.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Jessica Brabec. And again, I messed up the dates. It's actually August 10th through the 13th. I gave you Friday to Monday. It's Thursday to Sunday.
There we go.
We'll have more CNC after the break.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back. Coffee and Cream in the morning as we wind this thing down on a Thursday.
What day is it?
Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers. It is THURS Day.
Nice.
Thurs. It's Thirsty Thursday.
It is.
Patron tent.
And out of the Storm Chasers game.
And it is.
Yeah.
Look at that. See? Connections.
Love it.
Hey, speaking of baseball, I think this is a great way to kind of wrap things up. We were talking a little bit about Shohei Ohtani during the Sports Six-Pack.
Mm-hmm.
A question was asked where we would like to see him land, like the most fun place.
Yeah, not where we think he'll land, where we'd like him to go.
Right. Now let's talk about where we think he could land, because the MLB trade deadline is coming up. Believe it or not, it's less than 2 weeks away, and it's kind of sneaking up on us, creeping, because we haven't seen a trade yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so by having that be the case, no one's really talking about at anything other than Shohei Ohtani.
Right.
But the right move for the Angels right now, unless you're going to lock him up, which hasn't seemed like a priority, should be to deal him, get prospects, and then maybe try to re-sign him
anyway,
whenever
when he
the time
comes back. Yeah.
Because you could probably have that conversation. I don't know how much collusion plays into deals and things, but you could at least put it on his radar, saying hey, we're going to deal you at the deadline. We're going to see if you can go win a championship this year, but know that we'll try to get you back.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's considered collusion. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think you could have a conversation and
Right.
says, hey, we're going to deal you because we need help in more places, but I hope that doesn't rule out you maybe wanting to return here in the off season after you've spent time with a contender. We all obviously, that that probably lessens your chances because you might have
a World Series under your belt. And you're like, I don't want to leave this organization.
Maybe let's say he goes to the Dodgers, which I think is a realistic possibility.
I actually don't, but can go ahead.
Okay, I'll be interested to see why you think, because as we mentioned, they do have a farm system that they could send prospects to the Angels. If he already likes living in the area, it's a very easy transition for him, and that's a contender right there. Say you trade him to the Dodgers, and maybe they don't end up being a good trade partner. I do think they're a potential signing partner if he doesn't get traded in the offseason.
That I think could be more of the case.
It might just be the Angels don't want to trade him to an in-town.
So that's why I don't think he'll
fair.
get traded, because I don't think Marino is going to want to send him to the other Los Angeles team.
Fair.
And the reason for that is he can be super stubborn with a deal.
Yes.
So the Dodgers aren't going to offer what he's going to want in return to send him to the crosstown
and fair
team.
There's a little bit of a Carmelo Anthony thing here when he wanted to go to the Knicks. A team like the Dodgers could look at Ohtani and be like, hey, just sign here in the offseason so that we can still keep our prospects and keep being competitive. That was the crazy thing about the Carmelo deal is he's like, hey, I want you to gut your roster so I can get there 3 months earlier, which was idiotic, right? But he wanted more money, and if he was traded, he can get more money on the extension. So that's a fair point. I think the Dodgers might be his ultimate destination. Maybe less likely he actually gets traded there.
When you talk about ultimate, it's because they're a contender this year and he doesn't have to move.
Doesn't have to move, and they'll pay. I mean, we've seen they'll pay money for prospects.
It just doesn't seem likely that ownership,
an actual trade happening,
will allow that to happen.
That's totally fair. So where do you think are some places that maybe would make a trade? They are motivated to maybe get over the hump, and there's a decent chance that they could get him to re-sign after the season.
So I wrote down 8 teams that I think could make a trade for him.
Okay.
But I split them up into 4s of likelihood versus unlikely.
All right, let's hear them.
So I'll start with the unlikely teams. I think the teams that swing and miss, first off, the Tampa Bay Rays. They're going to want him, but they don't have anything desirable in Tampa to make him want to come play there.
Well, not to stay, certainly.
Right.
Yeah. And so you don't want to give up a lot to have a guy as a rental.
The Yankees are another team, I think, are.
So you think they're not likely?
I don't think they're likely to get him.
Okay.
And the reason for that is I don't think they want to include Spencer Jones or Jason Dominguez in a trade.
Fair.
And unless they're getting
one
of those 2 guys,
they would have to.
The Angels aren't trading Shohei Ohtani to the Yankees. The Orioles are another team I don't see him ending up at.
They have the prospects
He'll
for it.
contend for a title there.
And they have the prospects to do it.
They have the prospects to send, but they're not going to send Jackson Holiday.
And he's probably not re-signing there.
No, and he's not going to re-sign in Baltimore.
Right.
Who wants to play in
So
Baltimore?
you're certainly not giving up Jackson Holiday if you don't have a pretty good idea.
Can't imagine Ohtani would be thrilled to live in Baltimore for
I don't know
next
anyone who
X
is.
amount of years.
Yeah.
And then I also think the Mets are a team that he will not go to.
Okay.
They have the big name prospects, but the way that they're struggling right now, he may look at that team and be like, are you making the playoffs? Like, I'm not moving to a team that's not making
Am
the playoffs.
I in any better shape there
than I am here?
Than I am with the Angels.
So those are the 4 teams that I think he's out on. Now, you argue your points whenever, but the teams I think he's in on, one is the D-backs, the team I actually think would be a fun spot he could land at because of all of the prospects they have. But I also think there's some reluctancy there by the D-backs of saying, hey, things are going right now. Why would we change that?
Yeah.
Why would we send our future away in order just to get one really good player? Because if you do make a deal for Ohtani, maybe you don't keep Corbin Carroll.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe
you're not getting him for nothing.
Yeah,
you're not getting him for nothing.
Give him up.
Yeah.
Or they're going to need pitching. Really, that's ultimately what the Angels need. When it comes down to it, well, they need some offense too, but pitching is a huge, huge thing. I think another thing that the Angels could ultimately do is maybe package Ohtani with Rendon and make people take on that salary.
Okay.
Because it's like, hey, thank goodness you can have Ohtani, but you're taking $127 million along with it.
I wonder if they would do that if they're not getting the prospect hauls that they
that
are
I
hoping,
could see. Because
there's a chance, since there's no guarantee that he'll sign. This isn't like the NBA where it's a sign and trade type situation.
Right.
Since there's no guarantee he'll sign with you, teams may be hesitant to give up their top prospects. And so they say, okay, what else can we get out of this situation if we're getting the B-level prospects instead of the A-level prospects? The other thing you can get rid of is get off of that contract that you maybe don't like anymore. So that's an interesting thought that they package those two guys together.
Here's the other two teams outside of the Dodgers who have the influx of whatever to get Ohtani if they want to.
The big hesitation would be
sending him to a crosstown.
Will the Angels want to trade to their crosstown rival? Everything else makes sense.
The Rangers are the number one team in
really interesting.
Best offense in baseball. They lost DeGrom this year. They could really use Ohtani in that rotation, and that would set them apart.
As a World Series contender, absolutely.
And the other team is maybe Seattle. And the reason I bring up the Mariners,
Seattle would be fun
because they definitely have the prospects to deal.
Yep.
I just don't know if they have the second half run in them to make the playoffs. But that's why I have maybe Seattle in front of that.
Yeah.
But
so
if I'm LA, I want Kirby or Gilbert in return. I want a starting pitcher in that deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to get. And I wonder what the Angels' goals will be with the prospects, because are they under the impression with Mike Trout that they still want to compete relatively in the near future, or are they kind of looking at it like, hey, we need to do kind of a ground up rebuild? Mike Trout will keep butts in seats in the meantime, but we don't really like our chances to figure out a way to be competitive while Mike Trout's still playing here. And so that's going to be the question on who they target, what type of prospects they target, and what team they target as a trade partner.
The good news for Angels fans, they are in luck, because even though you're losing Ohtani, you are getting the biggest haul out of any MLB trade ever by giving up Shohei Ohtani.
Most likely,
this is going to set up your team the best way it can recover from what has been done over the last 10, 12, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, and that's I think that's the most.
You just have to look at the bright side of this.
Yes, I think that's the most plausible outcome. I do wonder if teams will be hesitant to part with their best prospects if they don't know Shohei's resigning. And that's probably where the collusion comes in, where they're having backroom conversations with the agent and be like, hey, what are our chances to resign here? What kind of number are we looking at? Because if they don't have some kind of assurance that he's signing with them, they're not getting that haul.
Right.
They're going to get good prospects. They're not going to get A+ prospects. They're not going to get as many of them. They're probably not going to get young major leaguers who have already kind of broke through from prospect to player. That's where it's going to be really interesting to me, is what are the offers looking like for Shohei? And that'll give us an idea of how much the agent is willing to play ball in terms of re-signing there.
So ultimately, your team that you think he'll land at, and you think the team that has no shot at getting him but is a contender this year?
So I think Baltimore has no shot at getting him.
Okay.
I think it would be fun. I don't think they have any shot at getting him, because there's no chance he's re-signing there.
Are you shocked by my Yankees play?
I was a little shocked they were in the not category, but they are also, even though they're 3 games above 500, they're at the last place in the Big East right now. So I kind of get it. I also don't know that they want to part with their prospects.
Right.
So I think Baltimore is the contender that has no chance at him. I'm going to go against you here, and I still think it's the Dodgers. If something happens because of the assurance that he would likely re-sign there, I think if something happens, the Dodgers are kind of my number one.
So the no-shot team for me would be Tampa.
Fair, yeah.
Tampa number one. And the shot for me would be Texas.
The Rangers are probably my number 2.
That would be where I kind of lean right now. But it'll be interesting as this thing shakes out.
And I have no frame of reference for if he has any interest in living in Texas long term, right? So I
could see him adapting to that culture. I could see him putting a cowboy hat on.
Yeah, I just have no idea. I have no idea.
The way people dress nowadays, walking into arenas, stadiums, things like that, Shohei could walk in with Spurs and a cowboy hat on, and
be a great look for him.
Beloved.
I can see the poster now.
He would be beloved in Texas.
Yes, he would.
Like I said, it'll be really cool to see how things shake out. That will do it for today's show. We'll be back tomorrow. A great lineup ahead. We will release it tomorrow morning, right before the start of the show. For Ravi, Lulla, I'm Andrew Rogers. It's Coffee and Cream.